Greetings, everyone. It is Thursday night, and maybe I should. There you go. That'll cut out some of that feedback. All righty. Much better. Well, I see some of the usual suspects are here. Mr. Burgess is here. How you doing, Demetrius?
Hey, Mr. King, how are you tonight?
I'm doing fine. Waiting for our guests and, of course, Bill. So we'll kind of see how that comes about. But this Denver Nugget team is sticking around here. I'm a little afraid there. Your Utah Jazz, we'll talk about them some tonight. Along, but I do have to ask you while we're kind of here by ourselves. What's with your coach showing up with this helmet on today? I mean, first week knocking, we're knocking off their knees. Now, he was the grand marshal. He wasn't the pace car driver for the Indy. What's up, man?
So that's him. That's him. Get used to that. We can do that every week on SPORTSKRIB during the season. I'll be able to come with some nice nugget from Dan Campbell. He's trying to set a tone. Mostly for me, I'm fine with it. If you win football games, we'll love it. And if you lose, we're going to hate it. Because at the end of the day, if this works, then it's going to be genius. And people are going to talk about developing a culture of tough, hard-nosed football players. And we've tried everything else. So why not try this? I'm not going to sit here and say it won't work. We tried everything. So we tried the New England way. We tried to put a football man in charge of the business operation. We've tried everything. So I think in general, I love most of what they're doing from a cultural standpoint in the building and the GM hire. I think Brad Holmes was good. I think this is who Dan Campbell is. If I thought it was an act, it would irritate me. I'd be mocking him right now. I think this is that dude. This is who he is, man. And this will not be the last time you're going to be, hey, what is up with that? And I'm going to try and explain to the best of my ability. But I think this is what we're getting in Dan Campbell. And I don't, if it works and we win football games, great. I'm fine with it. So, and if it doesn't, I'll be on my podcast every week saying, stop it with the kneecaps and the nonsense. So, but hopefully it'll work.
Speaking of kneecaps and nonsense, the USFL, we know what happened the last time.
Yeah.
And as it continued to show in the way that he ran the country, but that's another discussion on, different.
Yeah.
But, the definition of insanity. Did the USFL owners read that or?
No, I don't think so. I think they were doing it right, and they let one clown, much like 40-something% of our country let that very same clown 5 years ago. He ruined that league. That league was fine. They weren't trying to compete. They were playing in the spring. They were doing well. I'm going to be honest. I had a Michigan Panthers t-shirt. It was sweet. Their color scheme was awesome. Bobby Hebert was the quarterback. Anthony Carter from Michigan was a receiver. They won the first USFL championship. We loved the USFL in Michigan. It was great. They eventually, because of finances, had to merge with the team in Oakland, and we only had them for, I think, 2 seasons. But the USFL was the one team, the one league that was doing it right, because it's very simple. You'll never compete with the NFL. Don't try. And if you come in, and we talked a little bit last week about this, if they come in and say, we're not trying to compete with this monster juggernaut that prints money, they're 25, 30 billion. You can't compete with them. Understand who you are, know your lane, and come in and be a league that can give people like me and Bill Carroll something to do in the spring when we're missing football. But know who you are and know your lanes. I will buy a Michigan Panthers t-shirt. If they bring back the Michigan Panthers, I'm buying a shirt. I guarantee you, because I missed the one I had before. It was a nice maroon color. It was awesome. I love the USFL. So if they pull this off, I'll support it. If they bring the Michigan Panthers back, I'll support it. It's just there's only one way to do it. We talked about it. You need an agreement with the NFL at worst. If you can get support from them, I mean, advertising and all of it, funding the whole thing, it can work. It can work. But you're going to have to figure out a way for the NFL to make money off of it, because that's what they do. They print money. So if you go to them and show them, hey, this is how you can make money, they'll help. They'll help. And I think the TV partners, there's so many channels, there's so many places that need content. They won't have a problem getting a TV deal. I mean, if you want a reasonable TV deal, you can't go on, Bravo or something like that. So you're going to need to be on a viable sports network. And I think you're going to, at minimum, you're not going to compete with them for players because you're not going to have that budget. You need to understand we're going to be a feeder league. We know we are, but we can be a feeder league of young NFL caliber players and develop them. Bill Carroll and I will watch every single game. I guarantee it. And we'll come on the SPORTSKRIB every Thursday night and talk about the games. So there's an appetite there for it. There's demand. We'll watch it. I can't wait for the season to start. So if they do it right, it can be done. And if they don't let that clown be involved, obviously. But if you bring back those teams and those color schemes, you can tap into this nostalgia thing with dudes like me who genuinely love the Michigan Panthers and would buy in, watch the games, buy the shirts. I think it's the most viable thing I've heard. If the wrestling guy could try to do it twice, they can try.
Bill, we kind of talked about this last week with the spring league, and you were talking about if they could make a developmental pipeline into the NFL, which is one viable thing. But what do you think about the USFL coming back?
So I'm imagining, Demetrius is there, the honorary captains, Gary Clark on offense, John Coker on defense are out on the field.
Yep.
I can't tell you how much I love the USFL. Watching Steve Young throw bombs to JoJo Townsell,
yes.
Watching Kelvin Bryant's School Cats, E.T. Eric Trevelyan.
Yeah.
I mean, there were so many great rivalries. I still remember some of the best rivalries. And I remember having a fight with myself because the first year I wrote about the NFL draft was the 83 draft. And I had a terrible time figuring out the quarterbacks that class. And I eventually ended up with Elway and then Kelly right there. I was such a Jim Kelly fan. Oh, my God. And when he went and played in Mouse Davis's offense, Clarence Verdun and Ricky Saunders. And I mean, it was ludicrous stuff. I mean, I think Jim Kelly is still the career passing leader in the history of the USFL. Memory serves me. USFL Hall of Famer Jim Kelly. I loved the USFL. And just the thought of it coming back excites me to no end. I hope that they have really strong undergirding, backing, and obviously the Fox deal helps. I'm going to buy so much gear. I mean, I don't own NFL stuff, but I would definitely buy some USFL stuff. One is because, they could actually use the money. The NFL is doing all right.
You're supporting the product, really, yeah.
NFL, I should be trying to sell something to the NFL, not buy it. I've wanted a viable spring league ever since the first USFL. Right. I mean, I never fully got over losing the first USFL. Amongst the many reasons, I won't say his name again, but he's mentioned, I guess, sort of in passing. Of the many reasons I have had a bit of a grudge against that man, goes back to him killing the USFL.
Yeah.
Never fully forgave him for that. Probably never will.
Never.
So we had, people below a certain age don't realize how good the football was. It was really good football. It was really good football. Good coaching. Good. Yeah. The schemes were interesting. Some fascinating stuff happened on defense and offense. There were so many players, and a lot of these guys obviously went on to play in the league, but had really good runs and then, continue it on into the NFL. But some of the guys were bigger stars, right? John Coker had an NFL career, but he was a monster. He and Reggie White were battling it out for Defensive Player of the Year every year. It seemed like they were together in the USFL, which I know wasn't that long an amount of time, I guess. But I mean, I have a really strong affinity. Like, sort of my father was a fan, of course, of the AFL. My father was also a huge fan of the CFL.
Yeah.
And the Norfolk Neptunes, since it was right there in our hometown, I think tickets were like $2.50. So, and my parents were cheap by nature. So when my father went to a pro football game, it was Continental Football League, baby, watching, was it Manny Sistrunk? One of the Sistrunk brothers, who was a defensive star for the old Norfolk Neptunes. So the NFL has been weird, for lack of a way of putting it, about other leagues. And they have been somewhere between silently tolerant and sort of passive aggressively hostile, right? Depending upon which league and the situation and whatever. I mean, they've never said, "Oh, this is great." Like, you know what I mean? Welcome. Like, they never do that, right? It's never, we love having you here. No, it's never that. It's
not
somewhere
even with
between.
NFL Europe. They didn't really embrace NFL Europe.
That was the craziest thing, right? Of all the crazy things, this is your own thing. And they were like, yeah, I guess. I mean, like, if you can't, this is your stepchild. I mean, and it was clearly not even a favorite stepchild.
It's not.
They're just so weird about this kind of thing. And I don't see how it hurts them to say, yes, this is here. I think a rising tide lifts all the boats. I really think that if they would just embrace this and help it to grow, some of these people would follow some of these players who would find their way into the NFL. I don't know. I've never understood why the NFL is so weird about alternative leagues. But yes, I am a huge fan, hopefully. I've been hurt before, obviously, but I'm a huge fan of the idea. I'll put it that way. And I'm hoping it gets to be more than an idea.
Well, Don, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing good. How y'all doing?
Hey, Mr. Hayes.
All right, now, Don, you always said whenever they snap the football, you'd be there. So what's your thoughts on the USFL coming back?
I saw that today on my little sports wire, ESPN, and I got excited.
Yeah.
I like football. I think, in our society, everything's based on capitalism. I think competition makes it all better. It's going to fail, but I'm going to enjoy the ride. But it will fail. The original USFL lasts, 3-4 seasons?
Yeah.
2 good seasons, nonsense season, and then a fall.
So I'll give this version maybe 2 seasons. Maybe. But, hey, I'm all for it, especially if San Antonio gets a franchise. I'll go.
San Antonio has to get a franchise.
That would be an ideal spot. That would be an ideal spot.
Being in 7th, 8th grade, I remember watching the Gunslingers play in the Alamo Dome, the Alamo Stadium.
Yes.
I actually watched the Gunslingers play before I watched the Cowboys play in person. So
good.
Well, now we have the Spring League and now the USFL. But hey, like you said, Don, which lasts longer, the Spring League or the USFL?
Now, are you talking about the XFL coming back? The Spring League?
No, there's a league out now called the Spring League. That's literally what it's called.
I haven't heard about it.
Oh yeah, I watched the game last week. It's exactly what you think it is. So it's not NFL football, but that's the thing. None of these will work if they're trying to say this is real pro football. We have to all stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. We know who these guys are. I saw a quarterback for a team called the Conquistadors, or I don't know, Crusaders or something like that. He didn't look half bad. It's a kid out of Yale or maybe William and Mary or somebody like that. Not a bad player. Kevin something or other. He didn't look too bad. And then I saw a defensive lineman that was within the game was relatively dominant. But I think that the spring league is what it's called, and I think that there's not room for two of these. Sorry, there's not room for two of these. So if the USFL is legitimate, they're going to swallow up the spring league players. So I think that it's still all about understanding where you sit relative to the NFL, and don't try and do too much. Don't let some clown come along and destroy what you spent a couple of good years building.
So I got two questions. Which network is showing these games?
Fox Sports.
Fox, okay. So I'll look at in the second. So they have any like Conquistadors and Crusaders.
I think it was the Crusaders or the Conquistadors. The jerseys were nice. They had nice uniforms. That's a week ago today.
Unwoke.
Right. Exactly.
Crusaders, let's go kill the Muslims. Exactly. Conquistadors, let's go enslave the Native Americans.
And I hope I'm not wrong, but it was something like that. And I'm pretty sure it started with Steve. But the football was okay. I probably watched a quarter. And it was mostly just time. I had to leave because it's still football. And I'm that guy. It's football, man. It doesn't take much for you to get me to watch a football game.
Kids down the street playing. Yeah. I'll sit there and watch.
Sure. You put 22 guys on the field with 2 uniforms and a couple of refs, I'm in for a while.
Don, I don't want you to think I'm picking on you, but I'm going to start this question off with you because this question actually probably pertains more to you and I in our years in football than it does to Bill, which played with probably a few more rules to his benefit than it was back in the day. But, there was always this thing, and it even pertained to linemen. It's like, if you got knocked out, and you were able to get back up and go back and play the next 2 downs, you were considered an Iron Man. It wasn't about you having a concussion. So let's talk about this thing, in the NFL called race norming, where, kind of similar to black guys run faster. What's your thoughts on that?
Most black guys run faster than I do.
Black guys do run faster. This is not like that at all. One is a fact and one is not.
Hey, Jimmy the Greek got fired over it, so I'm saying like that. Okay.
I hope I don't get fired from the SPORTSKRIB.
No, so if you didn't get fired talking about my Steelers, you won't get fired talking about race.
Cool.
Don, like black guys' heads are harder. It's not a concussion for them.
Right.
They know how to play through pain. Different things. Kind of like, okay, can I use the white quarterback being more intelligent? Can I use that one?
Sure.
Yeah, he's the white guy is a student of the game.
Right.
The black guy is athletic. He has ability.
Right.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. These stereotypes have been around, like you said, probably since at least the 60s.
Long before that.
yeah, before that. But I'm talking about in the mainstream with the sportscasters talking. But there's stereotypes, but then there's things that people don't look at. For example, Warren Moon was a black quarterback. He wasn't that good of an athlete, but he could throw the ball. I mean, he threw the ball like everywhere. Tyson Hill, he's a white guy. He's a pretty good athlete.
Great.
Throwing the ball, he's average. I'd say below average throwing the ball, but he can run the hell out of it. So you say the same about Tim Tebow, Sam Ellinger. There are white guys who can run, and there are black guys who are in the film room. In fact, the quarterback for Texas right now, Casey Thompson, his dad played at Oklahoma.
Charles Thompson.
Yes.
Legendary.
Okay, so you want to break the stereotype. Here's Casey Thompson. He is a junior, eligible-wise. He's already started grad school.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's taking – I wish I had this schedule. He's taking in the semester he's taken 6 hours, and it's all online. So he has all this time to go in the weight room, in the film room, to throw the football. He was down in Miami, Florida, this past week throwing with Landry and some of those guys in the NFL. So Casey Thompson, he's black. He's a good athlete. He's also a student of the game. So he's everything you want. He was crazy, like 8 of 10 in the Alamo Bowl, 4 touchdowns. I mean, the dude came in and just lit it up. So, is he going to play in the NFL? He might. Who knows? But he kind of breaks that, what you're talking about, the stereotype of, well, this kid's a student. I mean, he's just.
I mean, I'll bring up Kenny Riley, who the first time he played cornerback in his life was an NFL training camp, right? He had been a quarterback all of his life, played a little bit of running back, a little bit of wide receiver, but had never played corner in his life. Shows up to the Bengals training camp for the first time ever. They say, hey, go with the corners. Now, he's not in the Hall of Fame, though he should be. But think of what kind of football IQ it takes to never play corner at any level. Show up to an NFL training camp, and they say, oh, go play corner. He's a day one starter. Plays 16 years in the NFL. Is number 5, I think, in the history of the league in interceptions. Never played corner one day in his life before he gets to an NFL training camp. Like, people don't talk about what kind of football brain it takes to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, so many of the things that we have been sort of let people get away with saying are just not just inaccurate, they're lies. They're just lies. The thought that you can just on natural ability play in the NFL, I don't care what the position is,
right,
is impossible.
Yeah.
You can hang around for a little while, but you can't really play on pure natural ability. If you're a true freak athlete, they'll keep you around for a little bit, right? And they'll maybe put you on the practice squad, because I've seen that happen. They did that with some of these guys. What's his name? Okoye, the shot putter from England, a few other guys. They'll to see if they can do something with them. So some track guys have done this with, but after Justin Gatlin and a few others. But after a while, they realize, oh, you're not a football player, right? And it's been fun, and here's some sweats and a cool story to tell your kids or whatever. But I don't care how good an athlete you are. If you don't have a brain, at least for football, I mean, you may not be great at trigonometry, but if you don't have a brain for football, you can't play football. You won't last. Every great player has at least an average and usually an above average football IQ. And most of the truly greats have a high football IQ. Almost all of them have a high football IQ. So it's just a lie. I don't know how else to put it.
This one's especially hard for me, though, because this is a measure of brain injury. They're conceding playing this game is going to injure your brain. So, okay, we're assuming that. So then we're going to measure everyone, and then when we get the results back, we're going to say this: because you're black, you were already kind of brain damaged anyway before you played football. Just because you're black, you were already brain damaged.
So wait, somebody said that?
No, this is what race norming is. They're basically adjusting.
Race norming is. This is what race norming is. Yeah. That you already are cognitively delayed or cognitively impaired because you're black.
Because you're black.
For being black?
For being black.
Oh, yes. And look up race norming, Don. Look up
right.
Okay, I'm ignorant. This is the first I've heard of this.
Oh, no. It's fine. It's fine. You should have never heard of this, Don. But the problem is that they've agreed on a settlement. And this is the criteria, Don, for how you get money or not, how you get settlement money. They've accepted that you've been injured playing this game. They've accepted that all these players in this settlement have been injured. And kudos to the wives, by the way. Without the wives of these players, this doesn't happen. There's a group of wives who drove this and wouldn't let it die. And ultimately, the NFL did the whole deflection of, well, it's not mandatory. The doctors just kind of normalize the scores. Wait a minute. Using the word normalize there is almost the worst part. But the idea that Kevin Henry, Bill will correct me if I got him wrong, and Najee Davenport, these two guys were denied And their scores on this test, had they been white, they would have been qualified. But because they were black, their scores were like shifted because of this. The only way I read it, and please tell me if I'm wrong, guys, is that they were saying you, because you're black, you were already impaired. You already had a brain injury when you showed up to your first, just because your skin is darker. So
you can read it on ESPN.
It's
not something that's made up. You can read it on ESPN.
And sometimes something so absurd, I have to laugh. This one is so absurd. Like your reaction, Don, was perfect. You thought I was making this up. And that's exactly how you should have. You were like, wait, what? What are you talking about? That's exactly how you should have reacted. Because it's like that absurd.
A Dave Chappelle comedy thing or something.
Exactly.
I don't know.
It's that absurd.
Yes, it is. Yes, that's what it should have been. It should have been, yes.
So I just tried to find a silver lining, and I want to applaud these wives who did not, and it wasn't actually wives of players that were denied. It was wives of players who hadn't been accepted, but had heard about other players being denied. And they started a petition and got like 50,000 signatures or something. And so kudos to, and I'm sure players were a part of it, but by everything I've read, it was this group of wives that would not stop. And finally, these guys are going to get qualified and they're going to get the money they deserve, which is, and the NFL just sort of deflected. Hey, it's not mandatory. The doctors were doing it. We didn't make them do it. Okay, you're accountable though. So it's one of the more absurd ones that I'm not even upset about it because it's so patently absurd. I just had to laugh. I actually have been laughing about this all day. It's like, are we serious? And Don, you just kind of verified it for me. I appreciate that because your reaction was exactly what it should have been.
I'd never heard that in my life. I mean,
and you should.
I thought it was about stereotypes, and I said, well, yeah, they've existed, but I didn't know that.
It is. It's just an extension.
No. This is
you and Bill covered it well. It's an extension.
This is straight up pseudoscience, my friend. There's a terrific. I don't want to call it a documentary, but it's on HBO and it's called "Kill All the Brutes," and essentially it talks about people. They really want to talk about "quote unquote" critical race theory. Well, race theory itself needs to be criticized because race was constructed. A bunch of scientists, as race as we understand it now, has almost no basis in real science, right? There are almost no actual differences between the quote-unquote races, virtually none. Oh, look, if you're Mongolian, you have your earwax is drier. I mean, there's some teeny tiny differences, right? But the differences are negligible, and there's more difference within any quote-unquote racial group than there are between racial groups. But
I know I sunburn easy.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying there are no differences. I'm saying the differences
melanoma.
Exactly.
Right. There are some differences. The differences are negligible. Like if you talk about the percentage of our genes, like there's such a teeny tiny difference between any human beings that you could compare to each other and other human beings. But even when you are talking about these quote unquote racial differences, we're talking about like 0.03% of your genes. But back to what I'm talking about, it was a construct to explain why these people need to rule over these people. That's it. That's why we have race. There's no other reason for it. That's the only reason we have it. And there was a bunch of scientists, and I won't even bother to mention some of them or any of them, but you can look them up if you're really interested. And one of the things that was part of this was called phrenology, another one of those wonderful pseudosciences. Yes, exactly, right. Exactly. Well, phrenology was a big part of establishing quote-unquote race. And that's why people were sort of joking about this, how like, oh, wow, the NFL's finally moving away from phrenology. This is not that far. I mean, they were kind of joking, but there's more than a kernel of truth in this, in that this is not a far step from actual phrenology. It's, once again, based on nothing. There is no actual scientific basis for this. This is the thing that kills me. If they could point to, oh, we have all these, 12 years of double-blind studies that prove this. No, they're not even saying that. They're saying that we averaged this and we averaged that, and this seems to be lower, and so here it is, right? I mean, like nothing, none of this stuff, you couldn't even get a C in a class with the stuff that they're putting in. Like if you were in a class on organizational psych or something, and you tried to turn this in as your project, they'd be like, nope, try again. You would not get a passing grade with this. So
it's pretty absurd, yeah.
It is. It's patently absurd. I urge you to look into it, and you will be hopefully a combination of shocked and amused. I did know about this before because I've been tracking the lawsuit for a while, and it's not really a secret. I just think the NFL had done a good job of pretending it wasn't going on. But anybody who sort of pays attention, and I'm one of those people, knew this was going on and had looked into some of the people who had talked about this in the past, and sadly, some of them have passed on. But which is another thing that we'll, I guess, talk about is how many of the tactics the NFL has taken are the old classic delay, deny, and hope you die. And it's worked. I mean, worked in some cases. Sadly, some of the people who've been involved in this have passed.
Dick Night Train Lane comes to mind.
Fred McNeil. It's a long list, unfortunately.
Let's kind of stick with the absurd here. The Raiders have decided to blow up their offensive line, but now they're going to build it around the play and character of Richie Cognito. Really? What's your thoughts on that, Demetrius? Richie Cognito? Really?
So I can't say that I understand. And by the way, congratulations. Question number 2, 31 minutes in. Good luck on your time. I'm just saying. I never try and understand anything John Gruden does, and I'm putting Mike Mayock in the same group because you ship out Trent Brown, and I'm sure there's a legitimate reason why you chose to move Trent Brown. And by the way, I like Alex Leatherwood, the kid they drafted out of Alabama. They might have a starting right tackle for the next 10 years, so that's fine. And they brought back Sam Young, but he's a depth guy at best, right? Their offensive line is not good. And okay, you had cap issues, I'm sure. There's reasons for all these moves. But here's the reality. You play in the AFC West, which means you play the Chargers twice a year and the Chiefs twice a year. So I'm just going to tell you about 3 dudes you might want to get to know. Linval Joseph is playing for the Chargers right now, and I think Chris Jones still plays for the Chiefs, if I'm not mistaken. And a guy named Jaron Reed. These are 3 of the best pass rushers in the National Football League, and you get to play them both twice a year. That is not boding well. So when you think about the idea of just talent in a position group that's critical, the offensive line, like right now, if you ask me to point out gratuitous Detroit Lions mention, the best unit on the Detroit Lions football team on their offensive line is going to be pretty good. And I think that's going to help them be a little better than they are. Richie Incognito, we know who he is. We know what he's about. Maybe that's what Gruden and Mayock think a leader is. I don't want him mentoring young people that I care about. I know that. I don't get it. I understand the question. I understand what you're saying. I don't have an answer. I know Trent Brown was a really good player. They probably shouldn't let him go. I do like the Alex Leatherwood selection. I don't think their offensive line is going to be very good, and I think that it will be reflected in the number of sacks they give up this year because they've got some talented pass rushers on their schedule. So the Incognito thing, I'm kind of staying away from it. I just don't think he's a good dude. He might be a good offensive lineman, maybe a good football player, and I'll let Bill and Don talk about him as a football player. I don't think he's a good dude, like a good person, which may not matter. It really doesn't matter. I may be off on my own there. I don't know that I want him. I don't see him as a leader of men. Jim Caldwell used to use the term leader of men. And I'm a big Jim Caldwell guy, by the way. Richie Incognito's not a leader of men. He hasn't demonstrated that he's a leader of men. So I don't get it. I totally understand your question. I do not get it.
Bill, you got to study draft choices and what the effect that the senior guys have on the locker room and all that. And we've been in locker rooms. I mean, your thoughts.
So Richard Dominic Incognito Jr. got sent to anger management, counseling, training, whatever, for the first time in his life in April of 2003.
Wow.
Do you realize how long this has been going on? It wasn't his last, as you might have guessed. He has had rage issues. We talked about spitting. He's a serial spitter. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. Like, it wasn't like he did it once or twice. He has repeatedly spat on people. Like, as we discussed, like, there's certain things like here's the line, and then spitting is way, way past the line.
Yeah.
He has literally run people out of the league in his career. I mean, what is there to say? What is there to say? Yes, he's been 4 times a Pro Bowler. I think he might have been All Pro once or something like that. I get all that. But he's 37 years old. He has, at some point or another, done something bad to someone almost every place he's ever been, from high school onward. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. If this is one of your locker room guys, wow, you are going old school with the. I mean, what the heck? I mean, like, I mean, we're gonna go back all the way. I mean, are we gonna like hang up pictures of John Banaszak and have a show around NATO? I mean, what are we gonna do? Like, how far is this? It sounds like you're going to try to be old school criminal elements all over again. But it is not 1971, and they won't let you do those things to people anymore. So I don't know how this is going to work out.
Don, I'm going to show my age again here, but Conrad Dobler kind of comes to mind.
Well, but at least Dobler was funny. I mean, he made great light beer commercials. Come on, but
I don't think he spat on anyone either that I know of. He did some cheap stuff, but I don't think he spat on anybody.
He was crushing fingers and stuff like that. Him and Mean Joe Green had like a contest. So you could be the dirtiest. So yeah, but it's funny. A franchise like the Raiders that gave us guys like Art Shell and Jim Otto. That's who you build. If you're going to build an offensive line, it's those type of guys, right? John Hanna for the Patriots back in the day. Those guys. Bruce Matthews. I mean, there's. Anthony Munoz. You got those type of offensive linemen.
Incognito off.
Yeah, but Incognito, no, not at all. But because yes, he's back. A few years ago, I'll say this: he is a good offensive lineman. Like I said, he's been Pro Bowl and all that, but it's more than just the talent. You gotta if you're going to be the guy that they're going to look to lead, you need to have the character. Now, if I'm going to form a motorcycle gang to go rival the Mayans or the Sons of Anarchy, hey, he's my guy. Let's ride, dude. But no, no. I agree. He's too much of a loose cannon to be building anything around.
It's a very Raider-like move, though. It is. You take this habitual line stepper and make him your locker room leader. That's very Raider.
But the thing, the Raiders from Al Davis days, that might work.
The game was different. Yeah, they could get away with some of that stuff. But
my favorite 2 quotes regarding Richie Incognito, and I'll close with this. There's 2 quotes that I always go back to. One from Scott Pioli, and the quote is, due to his inability to control his emotions on and off the field, he is a player I would not consider taking and would not want. Here's my other one. Tony Dungy said that on their draft board, it said DNDC, which translates to do not draft because of character.
Wow. That's all you need to say.
I thought it would be interesting to see how many different ways we'd look at this, but Richie Incognito as the leader. I might as well get out. I should put in my resume for the Olympic track team. But anyway, Bill, since you are a guy that always knows about draft picks and things like that, and I'm going to go to your expertise first. Of course, that means that you other 2 guys might not have anything left to say, but we're going to do this anyway. Okay. Bill, the Panthers are talking about moving Jeremy Chin from safety to linebacker. Now, if I recall, you are one of the guys that mentioned his size
Yep.
playing linebacker at 220. So, what's your thoughts on this? Will this
Well,
make the Panthers better?
this is a thing now. Dexter Coakley, you were born too soon. But this is the thing in the NFL is to get guys like we talked about Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. We talked about Mark Barron. These 216 Deion Buchanan, 270, 218-pound guys, and have them play linebacker. Which is all fun and games until Richie Incognito pulls out, right?
Exactly.
I mean, since we brought up Richie Incognito, think of what his eyes would light up. Oh, what, a 218-pound linebacker? Yum, yum. Like, that's what he dreams of. This is what he's, like, all he's thinking of is how he can't wait to put his helmet in the base of that guy's spine. So, it's cool as long as it's nothing but throwing the football. But at some point, they still run the football a little bit in the NFL, and then things can get unpleasant.
Don,
Yes.
your thoughts on the Panthers moving Chin to safety? Is that to protect that 220-pound, 218-pound frame?
Well, there was a trend a few years ago in football where they call it spinning down, where they would take the safety, make him linebacker. They would take defensive tackles, move them to defensive ends to tackles and linebackers to. The concept was to have a quicker defense, and you still see that, especially in the NFL. So if he can make that adjustment, I say go for it. He has physical tools. He has a sense of the game. So why not?
Demetrius, you study draft picks and draft choices. You know how this young man came into the game. What's your thought? Will this improve his chances of playing longer? And how much will it improve Carolina's defense?
So I think both will improve. It's tough though because he finished second in Rookie of the Year. By the way, we slept that little fact.
Right.
Playing linebacker at 220. Now to Bill's point about incognito or somebody pulling out and their mouth watering when he will get lit up. He will just 220 at linebacker is not big in the NFL. Now he's going to be a big safety, by the way, but he's fluid enough, athletic enough to cover tight ends, and that's what this league is becoming more and more about. As a safety, can you cover a tight end? And I think at 220 he'll be able to do that. He played some safety at Southern Illinois, so this is not something he's foreign to him. He has made it clear he still thinks he can make a move, and it's early enough in his career. So all in all, it will make their secondary better. It will certainly lengthen his career. He should take fewer hits, which is odd to say about a linebacker or / safety because that's really a part of the job. But yeah, it'll do both of those. I just hesitate. He did something right last year. I think he led the league in fumble recoveries or some really critical stat, but finished second in Rookie of the Year. So it's hard for me to sit in that meeting and say, let's move him to safety. It's like, wait a minute, can we put 15 pounds on him instead? Is that an option? And it might not be. So I think they certainly know more than I do. I think it'll work. It'll work. So.
Well, now let's talk about your favorite coach and team. Dan Marino came out and said he doesn't want to see it happen. Of course, the Dolphin fans are always talking about that undefeated season too. So it's not. I mean, I guess in some ways we could call them haters, but then all you guys hate on the Patriots anyway. So I guess this is an appropriate question. Do you think that Belichick can pass Don Shula for the most NFL wins? I think just on if he would have to have 4 above average seasons for him to do this.
Yeah.
So are we saying that Belichick is going to is Mr. Kraft going to let him coach until he surpasses Belichick, because he might have to go through some really awful teams here?
Yeah, I will. If you let me start this one, that'd be great. I appreciate it. One favor, Mr. King, can you adjust your mic down just a little?
Okay.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so my calculation, and if I'm wrong, somebody help me out. I don't think he'll get there, and I don't want him to get there. But I think he needs 48 wins to tie him, 49 to pass him. Flint Northern High School math says that is roughly 4 years of 12 wins, and then into a 5th season. And Buffalo is good. Miami is good. We won't talk about the Jets. They're not the class of the division right now. First of all, nothing suggests to me that, I'm going to honor Bill Carroll right now, that they're going to win 12 games a year with Cameron Jarrell Newton or Michael McCorkle-Jones. Neither of those guys is going to average 12 wins a year. So now you're talking about maybe 6 years, legitimate 5 years. This man's 69 years old. I'm sorry. I know a guy in his 70s who I like a lot who's rocking it still, but he's not coaching an NFL team. He doesn't have guys out there cheating, getting film for him, and deflating footballs and doing all the covert espionage crap it takes. And more importantly, he doesn't deserve it. And there's 2 reasons why. I think we fail so often to acknowledge that he had the greatest piece of luck in the history of sports. Let's just be honest. He got the greatest guy to ever do this in the 6th round. And then that dude married a supermodel who supplemented their salary cap for like a decade. And oh, by the way, he's a super cheater. Second thing is he cheats constantly. He doesn't deserve it. I don't want him to get it. I don't think he can average 12 wins a year for the next 4 or 5 years, because that division is about to get really tough. Buffalo is good now. Miami's getting better. I don't know how he puts up 12 wins a year for the next 4 years. And at some point, Robert Kraft's a businessman. I don't know what you do without the guy under center who's been there, who was there for 2 decades. I like Cam. I don't think Cam's taking you 12 wins. And Michael McCorkle-Jones said nothing about him says they're a 12-win team in the same division with Miami and Buffalo. So, yeah, I don't see it happening, and I don't want it to happen. I think other people can. I'll be in the minority. I'm fine. I think he's a cheater who got super lucky. He's a good coach. Don't get me wrong. Nowhere in there did I say he wasn't a good coach. William Stephen Belichick III is a good coach. Fine. I don't want him to pass Shula, and I don't think he will.
Bill?
I think he's a stubborn individual, like many NFL coaches. It's not news.
You're going to go grouchy old man theory?
I think he's right. I think he is a grouchy old man. I think that the next year or 2 will let him know. I think if he just has to hang around to do it, I don't think he will. I think he's also very proud, along with being very stubborn. I think if the team does well this year, 10 or 11 wins, and things are going in the right direction, I think he'll try to chase it.
Good luck. We forgot to say we hate the Patriots. So I want to get that in.
I think Bill, since Bill hasn't changed expressions, are you back, Bill?
Am I?
Yeah, you're back.
I can hear him, but he's been frozen for a while. Yeah. We hear him.
Okay,
he's been frozen for a while.
Hold on. Give me a second.
Frozen Bill.
I'm waiting to hear what Mr. Hayes has to say about Bill Belichick. I can't wait for this.
Well, I'll just say this. My feelings about Belichick is very similar to yours, Demetrius. He's not Rich Incognito, of course, but maybe a little bit better character. But but Belichick is kind of a, I want to use the word slimy, but that's I'm looking for a word that maybe. Yeah, he's slimy. I
think slimy's fine. You did well.
You're right. It's funny, but because people will talk about Belichick and Nick Saban in the same breath and talk about, I'm like, no, Nick Saban is actually, I think he's an ethical, hardworking guy. I mean, Belichick, I mean, he just he always seems to be like kind of a shady type person.
Shady is actually better.
Shady.
Good call. Yeah. You question everything he does. When he has success, you're like,
exactly.
Yeah, but what did they do to get there? And there's a degree of it across all the success they've had. And I mean, I just think, the Tom Brady thing cannot be ignored. That's a big deal.
Well, we shall see. What did you say? 4 years of 12 wins. Well, maybe he'll have 3 perfect seasons.
Okay, that's what they'll do. That's easier. You're right. That's easier.
Well, I need Bill back in here because.
Oh yeah, for this one you do. Yeah.
Bill might. Well, he might have a much softer answer than I do.
I actually want your opinion on this. Why don't you start off on this one and tell us how you feel about it?
Well, I've been telling you ever since he signed the extension that I thought that he should have retired. That I think that it was one of the worst moves that we've made as far. I mean, there's nothing about him that's going to change. He took a pay cut, but he hasn't been in camp any longer. He hasn't been in the playbook anymore. He hasn't been in the weight room so I mean, so what's changed other than the amount of decimals behind your number? Mentally you haven't changed. Otherwise, that you're not Tom Brady and you're not you're not Jackson. I mean. Yeah, as I said, I mean, even though I think we'll win more games than Cincinnati, I still think that he's the 4th best quarterback in our division. So
your concept is it's negative because it was the pay cut that still allows him to be your quarterback.
Right.
Okay. Right. Because at first I was thinking, he took a pay cut, saved him $15 million. How is that negative? Now I get it. What you're saying is you don't want him to be your quarterback. Is what you're saying.
Precisely. I would rather take, and I know, we haven't seen anything of him yet, but I would rather take a chance on Dwayne Haskins and Rudolph rather than him take a pay cut. If you're going to take a pay cut, take a seat. That would have been my recommendation. Yeah. But Bill is back, so Bill, I'm going to let you start this one off. Where's Bill here? There he is. Bill.
Got him back. Just in time to talk about Big Ben.
You all know how I stand, and I've already reiterated to everybody else. But Bill, do you think that Big Ben taking a pay cut actually had a negative effect on the 2021 season?
I'm not hearing you, Bill.
You got to turn up the volume a little bit, Bill. We can't hear you.
He's saying something really good too. I can tell by his mannerisms. It was good.
Come back to me, Bill.
There he is. Oh, nope.
He was there for a minute. What happened? We had you for a minute, Bill. You're going to have to repeat all this, so I guess that's another half.
We can try the lip reading, and we'll interpret. I think Ben sucks. We should just cut him. No.
Come on, Bill. We got to hear you now.
Yeah, I know.
There we
go.
Can you hear me?
We
got you now. Yes.
Okay.
So the pay cut isn't the issue. The fact that he's a 39-year-old quarterback who doesn't work hard in the offseason is what hurts you. And, each year we hear this is the year that Big Ben's going to come into camp in shape, right? We've been hearing this for about 3-4 years. This year for real, right? But this time he means it. At some point you realize, as the old saying goes, I was a scorpion when you let me climb on your back. So that's what he is, right? He is who he is. And I completely understand what happened. They looked at their quarterback room and said, "Oh, these guys are terrible." And Big Ben's not a great option, but I mean, we can't send these guys out there. We can't put these guys on the field. We cannot. These guys can't play for us. At least not in front of people, right? So since they realized they couldn't have company over with these guys playing quarterback, they went back to the devil you know. Now, hopefully they're putting the succession plan in place, whether it be, hey, Josh Rosen, maybe this time it works. Whether it's we draft and hope that we get, the whatever. But you have to be putting succession plan in place. You've got to be. I really wanted us to make a long, hard run at Jameis Winston, quite frankly, when he was available. But whatever. Here we are now. And he's basically your bridge quarterback. I mean, let's be honest. That's what he is. He's your bridge quarterback. Because they looked at the other guys and said, oh, this bridge won't hold, right? They said that we can't even drive across this bridge. The bridge we have might be rickety. And this bridge's elbow might hurt. But at least this bridge won't collapse. We won't end up with our cars in the river with this bridge. So that was a decision they made. Am I thrilled with it? No. I was with you, James. Rip the Band-Aid off, whatever, get it over with. But I understand this is a prideful organization. The idea of going 4-13 just didn't appeal to them. I get it, right? I get that. So scrapping it out to 8-9 doesn't really help you either. But I get the whole pride aspect of it. I understand. Once again, I'm not going to quote Marcellus Wiley from Pulp Fiction, but pride is that little sting right back there, just effing with you. There comes a point where you have to push past that. This team needs to rebuild, and they haven't wanted to admit that. This team hasn't rebuilt in, let's see, it's been
12 years. 12 years.
Yeah, about 12 years, right. Right. The last time they rebuilt was 12 years ago. And they don't like it. I get it. It's not pretty. It doesn't feel good. It's embarrassing sometimes. But sometimes you have to do it. Sometimes you have to say, we're going to shake the Etch-a-Sketch up. No matter what was on the screen before, it's gone. We're going to start over. They're going to have to do this soon. I mean, they can't keep piecing this thing together. This is pretty much it for Ben Roethlisberger. He's admitting that. The team's admitting that. They have to figure out a succession plan. And their best players on defense are now, for the most part, in the back halves of their career. I love Cam Hayward, but he's only got another year or two left, probably, maybe. Hayden's got a year, maybe two left at most. They've got a really terrific young linebacker in Bush, but and TJ Watt, of course, is just entering his prime. Yeah. But a lot of the best players on this team are either done or close to done. They've let some guys go already in the offseason. Some more guys are going to leave this coming offseason. It's going to be a bit of an exodus, movement of people, and they need to prepare.
Yeah. Demetrius, I kind of understand what Bill's trying to say, but if Big Ben goes down at the fourth game of the season and we end up going 6-11, I mean,
I love how you guys act like there's not a Lions fan on the podcast. You guys just talk this nonsense like I'm not here. I looked at this differently, right? I looked at it like a Lions fan. I truly thought, wait a minute, they saved $15 million in the cap. They might have filled 2 roster spots with that $15 million. Why are we talking about this? And then it clicked. You just don't want Ben to be your quarterback. That's what it is. And I believe in the Band-Aid theory. If it's the right time, if you're sitting there and the draft falls to you correctly or free agency falls in a certain way, the reality was at some point you signed him to an extension. You guys know when it was. Maybe it was 4 years ago. Maybe it was 2 years ago, whenever it was. But when they signed that extension, you knew. And the best analogy I have actually is in another sport, is in baseball. My Detroit Tigers right now are sitting with Miguel Cabrera. And 6 years ago when he signed that deal, we knew then this day was going to come when that deal would be an albatross around the organization's neck. And it won't be Miguel Cabrera. Right away. No shade to him. great, phenomenal, fantastic years, gave us a ton. Right now, we got to play him because nobody's taking that contract. And there's some kid who needs to come up and get at bats and he can't. The Ben contract was the same way. And the pay cut probably helped them from a cap standpoint. But if they could have found a way to find someone better, because Bill's first point was really the only point. They opened the door to the quarterback room and said, damn. Oh no. And then he compared your quarterback. Bill compared your quarterback to a rickety bridge.
Hey,
that's it. But he looked in the quarterback room and said, I want the rickety bridge. We got to have the rickety bridge. That's what this is about. It's about the money, none of that matters. If they could have looked in that room and saw a better bridge, a less rickety bridge, a bridge that doesn't get your car wet. I'm staying with Bill's analogy. They just said, we don't want to get the car wet. We got kids, right? Somebody in the back seat in the car. We can't. And they ultimately said, nope, we're going with rickety. We hope when we get around the elbow turn, it doesn't break. But that's where you are. The minute they can get another quarterback, they will.
But see, I kind of like the way that you did that because, see, now it gives me the ultimate, comeback. How many Super Bowl rings did Detroit Lions got?
I talked about the baseball team. I barely touched the Lions, and I went to a whole nother sport. I know who I'm a fan of.
You went to the Lions when you said I compare them to the.
No, I'm saying that you guys are talking about 7 and 8. Is that what we're doing now? No, 9, 8, 9. I haven't figured out the numbers yet. Sorry, that thing has still got me. 8 and 9. You guys know how happy I'll be if the Lions go 8 and 9. You guys don't know anything about that. You guys are on a different place. We go 8 and 9. Let's blow up somebody's house. Do you know how happy I'll be if the Lions go 8 and 9? That's what I meant by that. We're at different places.
Don, will you be happy if the Cowboys go 8 and 9? I guess you're the wrong one to ask too.
I would be happy. I wouldn't be sad. I would be meet the expectations.
Yeah. And that's all of it. You guys have a different kind of expectation. Both of your teams have rooms that have Super Bowl trophies. We don't have a trophy room in Detroit. Working on it.
Eating lunch when I texted you. No.
So, oh man. So anyway, let's see here. Don, let's start with you. Who has the best defense in the NFC West?
Who has the best defense in NFC? You said, well, I think scheme-wise, I would say Seattle. But
there's pizza in there, right?
What's that?
Bill's having pizza. He didn't mute it. Apparently, we're having pizza. So now I'm having pizza after the podcast. Sorry, go ahead. You like Seattle scheme? Sorry.
Did we get pizza to the locker room? I'm looking at it. I don't see Domino's.
Pizza. Now all I can think about.
I don't see Domino's out here. Like what's it?
Pizza.
Anyway, go ahead, Don.
But I would say, given I would probably have to go with the 49ers. I like the stuff that Seattle does, but I don't think they have the guys they had back when they had the Legion of Boom. But
right.
I'd say, given the choices, I would probably go 49ers, and I'm not really happy about that. But
yeah, I hate disagreeing with Don, but I'm jumping in. Sorry, Bill. I think that Seattle, you're right. They don't have the manpower to be the Legion of Boom. I actually have them probably 4th. I like where Arizona's going, but they're not there yet. San Francisco is probably a top 10 defense. But the Rams have potentially the best player in the league on either side of the ball. He is absolutely the best defensive player in the league. And they might have the best corner in the league. The Rams had the number 1 defense last year against the pass, passing yards allowed, total yards allowed, passing touchdowns allowed. It's the Rams. The answer is the Rams. And I have a high degree of love as a football player for Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald is a tremendous football player. And if you take out all the glory and all that, he might be the best. He's in the conversation, right, for the best player in the league, period.
Yep.
I don't think there's a conversation for best defensive player. Khalil Mack's nice. Even his teammate, Jalen Ramsey, is really good. Aaron Donald's the best defensive player in the league. And Jalen Ramsey might be the best corner in the league. They traded Brockers to Detroit, but they got Leonard Floyd. So I don't think they lost a lot from what was probably the best defense in the league last year. So my answer is the Rams.
Bill?
Although San Francisco's going to be good. Healthy, San Francisco's really good.
Bill, the Rams or the 49ers?
Well, the last thing that Demetrius just said reminded me of why I can't pick the 49ers. Because he said win healthy. But they're never healthy.
Right.
I mean, not all of them at the same time. They can never get healthy at the same time.
Yeah.
Imagine if they managed to have Jason Verrett healthy and Bosa healthy and Richard Sherman healthy, but they can't. Like, it never happens. So since I can't say that this thing that's never happened will suddenly happen, I'm going to also go with the Rams, at least in part, because they have a guy that not only demands double teams, but sometimes triple teams, right? In certain situations, people say, you know what? We've enjoyed double teaming on most plays, but no, double teaming is not enough. We're keeping a back in. Yeah. And as soon as he beats that double team, you throw yourself at him. You won't stop him, but you'll slow him down, right? So, and Jalen Ramsey is, and I don't throw this around easily, but I can't think of a more complete corner. Now, obviously, the game was different, but when God designed man corners, I think the mold was Haynes, right? I mean, people talk about Lester Hayes, and no offense to Lester Hayes. Lester Hayes was like that wasn't how God designed corners. That was like a good, solid, above it, like Malcolm Butler, right? That's a good corner. And thanks to Stickum, he managed to take a little step above where he would have been without the help of Stickum.
Good call.
But Mike Haynes was what God had in mind when God made cornerbacks. And the closest I've seen, no offense to everyone else you want to bring up, that I've seen since then is Jalen Ramsey. In terms of speed, size, movement, skill. I mean, he's everything. This is right there. I mean, he's not far off. I mean, my little, like, Mount Rushmore of corners, Gerald Green gets there just because nobody was that good that long ever, right? I mean, and everyone puts Dion up there, but I love tacklers.
You didn't tackle.
So I can't quite put Dion there. Rod Woodson makes it over Dion for me because he was a complete corner. Haynes was a complete corner. Champ was a complete corner, right? This guy is right there with guys like Champ Bailey and Mike Haynes. I mean, that's how good Jalen Ramsey is. But Demetrius is 100% right. If I were starting a team today and I had the first pick overall in football, well, I'd have to take Mahomes. But right after that,
right. It's not easy. It's not easy because he's that good.
It's not easy. But if I couldn't get Mahomes, maybe I had the second pick. The second pick is definitely Aaron Donald, and I'm happy that I got Aaron Donald second overall.
Absolutely.
Don, you want to reconsider?
He's good. The 49ers, it's not his choice wasn't bad. It's health. It's health with them. They got
okay. So, to be honest, the Rams slipped my mind.
Oh, okay. That's fair. That's fair.
All right. Okay.
No, I'm sure. I was thinking about Rams. Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're still in the NFC West, Don. I know there's a lot of movement around, but
he was thinking of their days back in Cleveland when they first started. That was a
Cleveland.
It happens. The old Cleveland Rams with Bob Waterfield.
Boy, I'm not even that old. But
I love those Bill Carroll Nuggets. And he knows he's got everybody. He knows it. He just sits there and goes, "They're not going to get this. They're none of them. I got everything."
So I'm gonna throw this little nugget at y'all. Little confession. So we're talking about this, that. I've been going reading stuff about Richie Incognito.
You've gone down the Incognito rabbit hole.
He did. We're going to revisit it. He can do his final thoughts on Richie Incognito.
I was thinking he was punching caskets at a funeral home.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's who Richie Incognito is. He rage punches caskets.
Yes.
This needs to go on his headstone. And what it needs to say on his headstone is if you put your ear to the ground, you can hear him punching his own casket. That's what it
He's down there punching it.
Even the dead aren't safe.
Right. Right.
Demetrius, I came across this article today, and I just thought I'd go through it and just see who some of the players were. So, one of the ones that I came across was a defensive end by the name of
Romeo Okwara.
Okwara. Okay.
From Notre Dame.
And they put him on the NFL's most underappreciated players list. As a Detroit Lion, do you agree? Or, or only a Detroit fan could know his value?
Wow, that's well put. Both things are true. It is, but there is an inherent devaluing view once you put on Honolulu blue and silver. It's a part of you play for if you think about it, there are guys who just we mentioned them in different times in the careers of a great example is Herman Moore. Herman Moore was a really great receiver. He played at the same time as Jerry Rice and Michael Irvin and others, but he wore Honolulu blue and silver. He happens to be my all-time favorite player. Great dude, by the way. Yep. He was never going to truly be valued for how good he was, due in large part because he played for the Lions. This is absolutely true. Romeo Okwara is really good. He played in a horrible scheme. Matt Patricia's scheme was horrible, right? And he still recorded 10 sacks, right? He's about to play in a speed and space scheme under Aaron Glenn where he's going to stand up and play outside linebacker sometime. He's going to rush with his hand in the ground sometime. He's going to be, oh, by the way, he secured the bag. 3 years, $37 million, nice signing bonus. He got his money. He's in his prime. He's 27. They're going to bring back a healthy Trey Flowers. They added 2 really good young defensive tackles. If there's a respectable group on that defense, it's the line. And Romeo Okwara is a really good player. This is absolutely dead on accurate. I was a fan of him all year. I was so glad they re-signed him. I think he's got to follow it up, right? He's 25, maybe 25. He's just hitting his prime. Right, they got his brother on the team. If that means anything, it means something to the two of them. I don't know if it means anything to anyone else. But oh, by the way, Julian's not a bad player either. Julian's starting to come along. So I think that in general, the experts, the person who wrote this article, probably truly understands, as Detroit Lions fans do, how horrible Matt Patricia's defensive scheme was. It did not do him any favors. For him to record 10 sacks in that scheme is 14 sacks for any other, or 15 for any other scheme. So he has that skill that every team needs. He can get to the quarterback. And when you can do that in a bad defensive scheme, I think he's going to have a better year this year, and he'll be off this list because people are going to know. In the film room on Wednesday, other teams know who he is. They're looking for 95. They need to know where 95 is lining up because this thing is accurate. He's a really good player. He's in his prime. I'm glad they locked him up for 3 years. But, yeah, this is legit. And I think that in this new scheme, because Aaron Glenn has already said it, I'm going to put him wherever I need to put him. Aaron Glenn is coming in. He's going to utilize the speed of some of these players, and he'll stand up and because he can cover, he can do everything. So, yeah, I'm a big Romeo Okwara guy.
Don, I gave Demetrius that particular question just because of his Detroit Honolulu blue background. But who would be your most underappreciated player? Doesn't have to be in Texas. It could be in
No, it should probably be in Texas. There's plenty of them, right?
Well, you're talking about current or historical or
current. Jerry Jones is not a player. He doesn't suit up. You can't count him.
Who's that?
Jerry Jones. You can't count Jerry Jones, and we can't count Deshaun Watson. Unless we're counting massages.
Can I throw out one that I can get Don's opinion on? Because I think he just retired. The center from the Cowboys, Travis Fredericks. Is that his name? Yeah, Travis Fredericks. I thought he was a really, really good player. And maybe he's more respected around the league than I thought. But Dallas' center, that dude was the anchor of some good offensive lines. And I think they're going to miss him. And I might have the name. No, I think the name's right. I think his name was Travis Fredericks, and he's been their center for a few. I think he was the anchor of that line and a really good player. I think Dallas is going to miss him.
And he unfortunately was fighting Guillain-Barré syndrome, and then finally it forced him to retire early. But yeah.
I kind of feel like Amari Cooper's underrated in Dallas, underappreciated.
Yeah, you make that point. I think of people like, Adrian Amos for the Packers. I mean,
good call.
He's very solid. He makes good plays, but he doesn't get his name called a lot, by the sportscasters, by the media. He's pretty heady. I think Van Der Esch from Cowboys, linebacker, he got a little injured last year, but when he was gone, that defense just fell apart. So I would go with either of those two.
Yeah, I think Van Der Esch is a good call. When he was out, they missed him.
When he's out, it was a whole night and day. So,
yep.
Bill, pick one. Modern.
Sure. There's a couple of guys that leap to mind for me. I'm going to mention the guy that led the entire NFL in tackles from Vanderbilt, anchor down, Zach Cunningham, who I compared, and once again, since we're a bunch of old dudes, you remember this name. Remember Matt Blair from out of Iowa, who had a 14 or so year career with the Vikings? He really reminds me. Similar build, similar player, tall, angular, athletic, terrific tackler. And I'll throw out another guy. And I think that people who we talked about the Rams. Troy Hill sort of gets lost in the sauce because of Jalen Ramsey. But he's sort of back when when Denver had that terrific group with Aqib Talib, right, and Chris Harris. He's sort of the Chris Harris to some extent to Jalen Ramsey's Aqib Talib, and that the guy who's kind of mouthy and famous and rich. The guy who's not quite as mouthy, not quite as famous, not quite as rich, but a really, really good defensive back is Troy Hill.
Okay, well, let's talk some playoffs here. I am looking at this game, and it's going back and forth. So it's really close right now. I don't know, but by the time we get to the question, the game might be over. But so we're going to start with the Knicks versus the Bucks. The Nets. I'm sorry. Wow. Okay. Anyway,
hey, James.
Yes.
James, real quick. So I forgot to tell you. I'm leaving town Saturday. I have to go to Missouri. Tomorrow is our last day of school. And I have a lot to do, a lot of paperwork. I haven't packed, so I'm going to have to cut out early.
Okay.
So I meant to tell you that, give you a heads up, but I'm sorry about this, but
no problem.
I'm actually performing the ceremony. So.
Oh, nice.
Nice. Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
I'm ordained, so. But
sweet. I'm glad you could stop in tonight.
So I got last day of school tomorrow, and then I still haven't packed. I have a little bit of paperwork to do, so I figured I'd get that done tonight, so I can travel to Missouri in peace.
Well, but, give us your final thoughts, Don, before you go.
Well, final thoughts. I don't want incognito going to my funeral, but
that's it. That's how you wrap that up, right? They just drop their mic.
But hey, when we're talking about underrated players, it made me think the Cowboys back in the glory days with Aikman. You had a guy named Noah Check, who's a tight end. Noah Check caught everything, throws away.
And a terrific decathlete. He set at some point the high school decathlon record.
But that's not where I'm going. You had Michael Irvin out there, but you had a guy named Alvin Harper.
Yes.
Yep.
And Alvin Harper caught everything thrown in his direction.
Yep.
And he never got the pub I thought Alvin Harper should have. But that's I was thinking they had underappreciated.
Yep.
So.
And he signed one of the first big money deals for a free agent wide receiver in Plan B to go to Tampa Bay. Yeah. And here's the connection to Herman Moore. they back in Florida, they competed against each other in the high jump. They both went over 7 feet. I think Herman Moore's best high jump might have been in high school, might have been 7.1 or something like that. And Harper later went like 7.3, but I think that might have been when he got to college at Tennessee. You're both terrific high jumpers.
Yeah. Good call, Don. Good call.
That's my final thought. So y'all have a blessed night, and I will. I'm going to be in Missouri the whole week, so I won't be here next week. So I'll be here in 2 weeks.
We'll see you when you get back, man. Have a safe trip.
All right, thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
The Right Reverend Dr. Donald Hayes.
We got to get Don's middle name. So you can,
well, in case you're wondering about Romeo and Okwara, it's Romeo Chidozie.
Chidozie, yeah.
Yep.
See, not only does he know him, Demetrius, but he knows how to pronounce him.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
gotta love
it. So let's get back to the Nets.
The association. Yeah.
First of all, Demetrius, do you think that the Nets can stay focused for a 7-game series? We'll be flat, and James, maybe I'll play Harden. And secondly, who defends Giannis?
So second question first, nobody. The first question, no. So I have, not to pat myself on the back, consistently picked Milwaukee. I have been Milwaukee, Utah from the first time I appeared on the sports. And I want that on the record, even if it doesn't happen. Now, to your questions, here's the thing. They rarely play a game where the other team has the best player on the floor. They just don't see that often. Right. And they're nobody. It's not like it's them. They can barely spell defense, but most teams can't defend Giannis. But what they don't realize, and a lot of people are just quietly missing, is Drew Holiday is a really, really good basketball player. And I think people don't realize how much more, it's probably confidence might be the right word. Maybe there's a different word. Yep. What it does for Giannis to have Drew, because he couldn't rely on Eric Bledsoe. He thought he could, but he couldn't. Chris Middleton is solid. But when you've got another dude, when you know Giannis can show up and say, I'm going to give you my best. There are nights where my best won't be as best as it was 2 nights ago. And there's another dude here who can do what I need him to do. And they didn't have that. As much as I like Chris Middleton was never that, will never be that. When you've got that in Drew Holiday and you've got Middleton, Milwaukee might be a better team. Top to bottom, Milwaukee might be a better team. I don't know if I'm way out of line saying that. I know they have the best player. I know they have the best coach. I know they have more experience playing in the playoffs as a unit together in every conceivable way. I haven't even talked about the head cases in Brooklyn. I just think Milwaukee's a better team. I do. And I think World B is going to go World B at some point. I dedicated my final thoughts to him last week, and I'm still pissed about that. He's going to do some dumb nonsense. Is it after 10? Can we go after? Oh, not yet. In a half hour, I'll tell you how I feel about World B. No. I think Budenholzer is a better coach. I think Giannis is the best player on the floor. I think they're better defensively. I think they have more experience playing together. These guys have played together 20 times, maybe, in Brooklyn. And I don't trust them. I don't trust them. I don't trust they're going to beat Milwaukee 4 times in a week and a half, in 2 weeks. I don't trust them.
Bill, what do you think?
You just heard what I thought. Thank you, Dimitri.
Every now and then I get him. I get him every now and then. Right?
Hey, I was glad I took that Pittsburgh question before him too.
You know he's going to bring smoke, so you got something. You better get it in.
You know what I'm going to say about the Nets, right? I mean, you can literally play back everything I've said about them since they put that whole together. I mean, it's too much of. I mean, there's some great stuff in there, but too much of everything, right? They've got now the good news is that if you are like a beat writer, you've always got something, right? You never have to like scratch your head like, man, what am I going to write about? You've always got something. It's got to be probably the easiest team in the league to be a beat writer for because it's always something, right? somebody's hurt or somebody's this or somebody's something. There's always something, always. I don't trust that team. I never trusted them. I don't trust them as far as I could throw them. They have enough talent and enough whatever to win some playoff series, but not this one.
Right.
No. No.
This one. I agree.
No. I like Demetrius. I liked the Bucks. I liked the Bucks last year. I had them winning it all last year. Obviously, didn't quite work out for me, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if they won it all this year.
Yep.
They are a really good team that's really well coached. They don't have any big gaping like, oh my God, they're terrible at. There's nothing that we can say, oh, they're some teams, their weakness is rebounding. They can do this, and this, they can't rebound. Nope, they can do that.
Yep.
Well, some teams, they don't have outside shooting. Oh, wait, no, they have that. Some teams don't have an interior presence. Well, they sure got that. Right? You go for all the things like, well, can you trust their ball handlers in pressure situations?
Yeah.
They're not the best of the best, but they're good. They're solid. You don't feel queasy or nauseous about their ball handlers.
You're not going to lose your games. Yeah.
Right. They don't have do they have young Chris Paul? No. But no one has young Chris Paul. But all the things that you have to have, they have. Yeah. And they have some things at an elite level. They have a couple of things they're elite at. Yeah. And they're not terrible at anything. I trust them so much more than it's like I can't describe to you how much more I trust them than I trust the Nets.
Yeah. And it's odd that this whole conversation has not been about talent. We both use the word trust.
Trust.
Multiple times we talked about trust.
Yeah.
And that's an odd thing, but I think teams can beat a group of players. And I think this would be your example of a team beating a group of players. And I still view Brooklyn as a group of players, not a team.
Yes, we've talked about groups of players many times. The Chargers have been a good example of groups of players.
Yep.
There have been a lot of great collections of talent on basketball courts that never became teams. There were some really interesting Denver Nuggets squads in the past, right?
Yep.
Remember when they had Carmelo and Iverson and God, who else? They had this like a fascinating just melange of different dudes at different points in their careers. And it was kind of weird. And sometimes it was exciting to watch, but sometimes it was awful.
Groups of players can be successful in the regular season. The 2004 Lakers were a phenomenal group of players.
Yes.
After game one, I knew they had no chance beating the Pistons 4 times. After the first game, I knew that.
Yep.
And if not for a miraculous effort by Kobe in game 2, that's a 4-game sweep. The Pistons were such a team. The Ben Wallace, Rasheed, Chauncey, Rip, Tayshaun squad, that Laker team with Karl Malone and Gary Payton and Kobe and Shaq had no chance. It was such an odd thing to watch, but it was literally group of players versus team.
Yep.
And it wasn't really that competitive. And Kobe did miraculous things in game 2 to pull that game out. But that's the one that immediately jumps to my mind. That 04 Pistons team was team. And the Lakers were great players. All-star games down the line through that roster. And it didn't matter.
A bunch of those dudes, what? You just named 4 Hall of Famers. I mean,
exactly.
Yep. That was an easy one. Yeah. Next question.
Okay. The 76ers without a healthy Joel Embiid.
Imagine my shot that Joel Embiid is not 100% healthy. Is anything true anymore? Will the sun rise?
Versus a very hot Trey and the Hawks.
Yes.
So since you started it out, Bill,
this was yours. Yeah.
How many games can the 76ers afford to rest Embiid?
Well, they can't afford to rest him any games. I mean, they can't afford to. They will have to, but they can't afford to. Because afford to makes it sound like they've got a cushion of some sort, right? Like, it'll be fine if he misses X number of games because we got this. No, they don't. They don't have this. They don't have this at all. They are in trouble. Their boat is leaking, right? There's nothing that makes me feel like they're going to be okay. Nothing about this situation makes me feel like they're going to be okay. Joel Embiid is one of those rare sort of old school post players that still gets to play the way guys like Bob Lanier and guys used to play back in the day, right? That's, oh, wow. It's like fun. Like, hey, kids, come watch. It's actual post play. So, and they built a team to some extent to take advantage of that. And now that's gone. Yeah. And so there's no there, right? Ben Simmons is supposedly their next best player, but he can't shoot the basketball. Like this, I don't know how to say
one little thing.
Right? Like, it's so strange to say this. Like, people talk about him as this young budding superstar, but I can't quite get past the fact that he's a non-shooter. Like, this is not okay. I don't understand why people are pretending that this isn't a problem. When your second best player and the guy that some people treat as the leader of your team is literally not a factor in terms of shooting the basketball, that's just weird. You know, like, I've never quite seen a team constructed that way before. So
but Curry hits 31, and who was it? Somebody else hit 28. And how many points did Simmons have? Anybody recall?
No. He self-checked. You don't screen for Ben Simmons. He self-check. You can do so many different things defensively because you don't have to really guard.
How do you get paid that much money to put a basketball in the hoop and you can't do it?
That's why the best part of the podcast so far, other than Don obsessing about Richie Incognito, was just Bill getting out the sentence, he can't shoot basketball. Right? He didn't even want to say it. Bill didn't want to say those words, but his mind was like, yep, we're doing this.
Well, I mean, I understand the excitement sort of about him because it's like, hey, it's Magic Johnson, only an even worse shooter. Like that, like that's a hard sell as a superstar in my world, right? A more offensively challenged version of Magic Johnson. So we're talking about a guy who's a facilitator and he can play defense, he can do such and such, but you don't have to ever worry about him going off offensively, right?
Exactly.
So that's the thing that, to me, every superstar I've ever considered a superstar, at least that's it can happen, right? Right. I mean, even guys where that wasn't their main thing, right? There was still that threat.
Adequate. Right. It's a threat.
Because that wasn't Magic's main thing, but could Magic go for 30 or even 40? Yes. Yep. Magic could go for 30 or 40, right? Even though that wasn't his thing, he could do it. Could John Stockton drop 30 on you? You bet he could. Yep. He probably doesn't want to. He doesn't intend to. It wasn't his plan. Steve Nash could drop 30 on you. Like, all the great facilitators, Mark Price, name a guy, right? Even Bob Cousy wasn't a great. He was a terrible shooter, really. But could he? Like, he wasn't afraid of shooting. He would shoot if he had to. If you sagged off him to help out on Bill Russell or whatever, it's like, yeah, I'll shoot. It's basketball. I mean, I just can't get past the fact that their best player can never stay healthy. Their second best player can't shoot. To me, that's not a recipe for success.
That does not bode well. And my thing is that, last night, Trae Young made that announcement. I'm that dude. You got to put me on the list of that dude now. And the scary thing about that dude is he can beat you by himself. He can beat you by himself. So
he's on the Dame Lillard, Devin Booker.
Yes.
Yeah, he's on that list.
He announced that he's in there. So to me, it's like
Luka's on that list.
Exactly. When you talk about that, like the list of guys you were just running, I always go back to the same guy, is Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah could put 30 on you, 35 on you when he needed to. Then in 1986, they drafted a kid out of Louisiana, and that kid could shoot. And Isaiah was like, I don't need to score 30 because that guy can shoot the basketball. I'm going to kick it over to Joe Dumars in the corner. Oh, wait, we got Adrian Dantley. You want to talk about, hey, kids, let's learn how to play post basketball. You want to know what a drop step is. Kids, they don't know what a drop step is. Go watch some Adrian Dantley footage. You'll see what a drop step. Adrian Dantley was unstoppable. I mean, to a degree, Adrian Dantley could score buckets, and there was nothing you could do about it. You could foul him, but he was a decent free throw shooter. So Isaiah, when he realized I don't have to do that, that's when they became a championship level team. Yep. When Isaiah went from scoring 26, 27 down to 20 because he had help. And I think that when your best player can't stay on the floor, this is totally repeating Bill. Sorry. When your best player can't stay on the floor and your second best player can't shoot, eventually that's going to bite you. You can get away in one round. At some point, you're going to get manhandled. If you get through Atlanta, Milwaukee's waiting for you. That ain't going to work. And that's a meniscus. I'm sorry. The meniscus does not work like that. The meniscus heals through two things: surgery or rest. Rest and inflammation management. Is he going to come back and play on a strained meniscus? Or it might be torn, actually. I don't know if they've confirmed it as a tear. We might not see him. They might be done because we might not see him. Because I don't know that they beat Atlanta without him and that self-check point guard / center, whatever Ben Simmons is. But you don't have to guard him. You can fall off and do whatever you want. You can run in the lane for steals because you don't have to guard him outside of 12 feet. He might not even shoot a 12-footer, but they're in trouble. To answer your 0 games, they can afford to rest him. You could try game 1, and if you somehow win, you rest him game. The minute you lose a game, his ass got to come back. So you could try it, but that's the answer.
Yeah, I think, at best, you play him in as many home games as you can and let him rest. I mean, like
it might be moot. It might be moot. The meniscus might make this moot.
Right.
It's gonna be tough.
It might be. Wow. I don't know where I want to start this one because I know, Bill, it has to be hard for you. The Suns, they don't just win the game. This was a beatdown.
Oh, yes.
This was, clearly a beatdown of epic proportions. So, everybody likes, now they're saying, if LeBron loses, this in the first round, where does that put his standing as to go? But with this loss, LeBron was on the floor.
For a while, yeah.
You got to point fingers. I mean, everybody else does it. So who are you pointing fingers at?
I'm pointing fingers at Devin Booker.
Right, exactly.
I mean,
sometimes you point him that way.
I mean, we talked about the Dat Dude list, right?
Yep.
This guy is clearly, I put him on the list last year, and he's established that he belongs there. He is a guy who can go for 60, 70. I mean, I think before he retires, he might have an 80 in him before it's all over. Yeah. He is a guy who can just get unbelievable. And he deforms your defense. You can't play the defense you want to play because he's a guy who can slash, right? He can get to the hoop. He has a mid-range game. He's got an outside game. He can finish. He can play make. Like, he's really very complete. When I think about him, I think about a larger and better outside shooting version of Kevin Johnson. And I don't say that lightly because I was a huge Kevin Johnson fan. But he is about 2.5 inches taller. He is durable. That was the one knock on Kevin Johnson. He's another guy that couldn't really stay healthy for whole seasons very often. But Booker's durable. He's a good enough defender. He can rebound. It's sort of like the stuff we talk about with Brian Westbrook to some extent, only he doesn't have to finish at the hoop, right? I mean, not that Westbrook had to, but that Westbrook at his best had to get to the cup. This guy can decide to beat you from other places. I don't feel like driving tonight. I'm going to hit a bunch of, deep threes. I mean, he has his offensive game is variety and greatness and difficulty for you. There's not a single way to defend him. You can't say we're going to take away this because he's got all these other options, all these other counters, and he's a good enough passer that he can get good shots for his guys.
Yeah.
The term coined, I think, originally for Isaiah Lord Thomas was lead guard, right?
Yep.
I believe about 2 or 3 years into his career, they coined the term lead guard, right? And then later Iverson sort of fell into it. A guy who is your primary ball handler, but also your best shooter.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So he's your primary ball handler and your best shooter. So he's not really a point guard because, theoretically, at least, a point guard isn't the guy taking the most shots. So whoever you call your point guard, well, not call. I mean, obviously they brought in the point god to sort of teach and
they have the ultimate leader at point.
Right. Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? But you have the young Skywalker. You have this young Jedi who has an immense amount of force within him. And so you brought in Obi-Wan Kenobi. We talk about trust. I trust the Suns.
Yes.
The Suns are literally one player away from being a team that can win all of it, the whole thing. They're one player away. And sometimes they don't seem to realize they're one player away. They decide not to play like a team that's one player away. They play a team sometimes they play like a team that's right there already. But they literally are one more player away from, banners, from all that stuff, from parades, man. This team is dangerous. I said this before. This team is very, very dangerous. Don't play with them.
Yep.
There's nobody that they can't beat. There are teams that they shouldn't beat, at least not, for 4 out of 7 or whatever. But there's nobody they can't beat. Nobody who's in the playoffs, there's none of those teams they cannot beat. Because of what? That dude.
Yep. When you have that, you can do it. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago about the Clippers going all Clippers and doing everything they could to avoid the Lakers. And we talked about it. No. This is when you want the Lakers. And the Star Wars analogy is flawless. I really can't follow that. They got Obi-Wan and Luke. And it is working to perfect. Very few people love Chris Paul. I want to call him C3PO now because that just seems so close to actually CP3. It seems like it's perfect. He's the best leader in this game right now.
Yep.
He still is very talented.
Yep.
But more than that, he went there knowing I've got a Luke. He's got the force. He has taken on this role of Obi-Wan. Just the perfect analogy. And I think that to your question, I'll keep it short. There's no, you point the finger at Phoenix. You point the finger at Devin Booker, like Bill said, because sometimes that's what it is. We knew a Davis-less Laker team. They're not 100%. LeBron's probably not 100. We knew that. We talked about that in depth. If the Lakers were totally healthy, this would probably be a different story. But we have had these conversations. We said the same thing. Without either one of those dudes, they're a good team. They're a pretty good team. Phoenix is really good. I mean, they got glue, Bill Carroll glue guys. Yep. They've got Obi-Wan and Luke. This is not people shouldn't talk about the Lakers. They should talk about how good Phoenix is. That's what the conversation should be. How good the Suns are.
Okay. Hey, that's reasonable. But you always think, we got LeBron, so that's all we need. But evidently, you do need a healthy Davis there too. But this next question, we already know that the Trailblazers have got their fishing ticket punched.
It's over.
It's over. It's over. The Denver let them lead for 3 quarters and then kick their ass out in the 4th. But anyway, so the Lakers are playing next, and do you think that perhaps the Trailblazers should get a bigger boat, or do you think that the Lakers will pull this out tonight?
Dame and LeBron can go fishing together. They can go fishing together tomorrow morning. It's like I said, for all the reasons Bill just laid out. And I think it's simpler. I think as they're constructed now, Phoenix is a better team. Now, it doesn't mean LeBron won't go out and do a LeBron-like thing tonight and stave this off. But they still have Chris Paul and Devin Booker. And those are dudes that don't disappear. Chris Paul shows up every night. Chris Paul shows up with a bad shoulder, with a bad leg, with some kind of ailment, because he doesn't like to be healthy. He likes to play injured. It's almost like that's his thing. Chris Paul is going to show up with some kinesiology tape on something. Something's going to be taped up, but he's still going to give you Chris Paul, and he's going to make Devin. And that's the real key. Chris Paul has made Devin Booker that dude. Playing with he may have jumped that fence anyway and become that dude. I guarantee you, if you ask him, he will say playing with Chris Paul allowed me to quickly go to that dude status. But I think, to Bill's point, he might have put up 70 a couple of years ago on somebody, as I recall, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So he already had that dude potential. Chris Paul certainly helps. I think that I'm surprised Portland didn't bring more. I was sports crib focused, not really watching it, but I will not be surprised if Phoenix closes the Lakers out tonight too.
So Bill, just get back to the Jaws analogy. Do they need a bigger boat?
Well, to sort of play with that analogy, I think they need a deeper boat. I mean, that's what I've been saying for some time about the way this team is constructed. Going back to when this team, as it's constructed, first got back together, I said, they have, these two great players. And of course, back when they first got in, they still had Rondo and some of the other sort of glue guys who have since moved on. I'm not in love with this team in terms of depth. Never have been.
Right.
This team's always scared me, James. I've been talked about the way this team is constructed going back years. I said I really wish they were deeper. Once again, I'm kind of a broken record on certain things. I never trust teams led by James Harden, no matter which team it is. And I don't trust the way the Lakers are built because if someone gets hurt, and we've seen this, right? Especially if someone important gets hurt, this team looks like you can tell they don't feel the same way about themselves as a team. How can I feel the same way? If you don't believe, how am I going to believe? Yeah. This team is, if they stave it off, and they might, it's a pride thing. We're not going to go down yet if they manage to hold off the Suns. But the Suns should prevail. Yeah. They are the better team. They are the team that is better constructed to continue on in the playoffs also. Once again, unless Anthony Davis is right around the corner from being close to 100%, which I don't think he is. So, yes, the Suns are the better team, and the Suns should win.
Yeah. Davis is out there, but he does not look good. He looks like he's favoring that leg.
Because he is, yeah.
And Phoenix has already knocked down his first three-pointers. So
the groin is similar to the meniscus. They don't cooperate. They're not quick comeback injuries, and it's just rest and inflammation management. Those are really the only ways you recover those injuries. There's no way around it.
How many points?
Shot, there's no balm. There's no ointment.
I mean, Barry Bonds might have something, but I don't know if it's legal.
Hey. The man gained 3 hat sizes on the plane trip from Pittsburgh to San Francisco. Please. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about your team, there, Demetrius, the Jazz. The Jazz, they decided that they would just go ahead and get rid of Memphis last night, but. They're getting now, as far as I'm concerned, and I put this up yesterday, so I'm glad that it turned out that way. But I said that they were going to be getting ready for the Mavericks.
Yeah.
What matchup intrigues you most in that series, the Jazz against the Mavs?
Yeah, so we like to talk about certain terms. Like my favorite term is still glue guy. That's Bill's. I still love that because that's a unique kind of individual that you need on a team. We talk a lot though now, especially about that dude. The dictionary of that dude. Look in the dictionary under that dude. It's a pasty European wearing number 77. Right? Here's a definition of that dude. He put up 42, 8, and 14 and got the win. Right. That's what that dude does. So I don't know how to quantify this toward your question because I don't know who guards him, right? The reality is Luka versus the Jazz defensive scheme might be my answer. And I don't know if that's really what you were looking for, but I don't know that your 6'1" point guard, Mike Conley, is guarding 6'7" Luka, right? Although Luka's listed as the point guard. I don't know if you do that, right? Do you do Bogdanovich? Is it Royce O'Neal? I don't know who it is. Is it a team approach? Are we running him off of switches? And I don't even know because nobody's figured it out. Nobody's figured it out. The matchup is, can you contain Luka and challenge everybody else to beat you? That's, and I think I'm cheating on the question, but ultimately, if Rudy Gobert does what Rudy Gobert's supposed to do, right? Protect the rim, make it, but then Luka doesn't need to be there. He doesn't care. But if Donovan Mitchell is Donovan Mitchell, Conley is Conley, and Rudy's Rudy, Utah's a better team. Utah's a better team. But your question was intriguing matchup. What's the matchup? The matchup is Luka versus whoever's defending Luka at that moment on that play, coming off of that ball screen. That's what matters, because there is no better definition. LeBron is the king of that dude for sure. Right now in this league, because Porzingis isn't being KP's not being KP right now. They're not getting what they thought. Now he might not be fully healthy, or I don't know. Make Porzingis beat you. If Porzingis beats you, cool. I mean, you can live with that. Porzingis isn't going to beat you 4 times though. That's the reality. Luka might beat you 4 times. Luka on his own could dance around 45 or 50 4 times in a 7-game series and barely break a sweat. This is that dude matchup, right? They're not. Tim Hardaway Jr. is not going to beat you. Dorian Finney-Smith is not going to beat you. Luka will beat you. So you have to, as a unit, as a team, and I'm just going to use the word contain because stopping him is probably absurd. It's probably a ridiculous thing. And I don't know how you do it. I don't know if Royce O'Neal and Bogdanovich are chasing him around, or you can't have Donovan Mitchell expend his energy chasing and defending Luka. That's probably bad because you need him to do what he's supposed to do. Conley in the same vein. And although if you look at a side-by-side matchup, it probably has Mike Conley's name across from Luka. But that's 6'1" versus 6'7". I don't know if that makes sense, right? You have to figure out a way to do that. So again, my answer is Luka versus whoever's guarding Luka is the intriguing, because it's really Luka versus the Jazz defensive scheme. And they have Rudy Gobert, who does change the game differently than probably anybody in the league. Because he can protect the rim. So I think that's going to be a great series. It's going to be a fantastic series. I think Donovan Mitchell is playing really well right now, and he's going to do what he's going to do. And nobody on Dallas's team suggests to me they could stop Donovan Mitchell. The reality is, if Luka goes 42, 8, and 14, he can beat you 4 times. And so that's where it is. I mean, that's kind of a weak and easy answer, but that's what it is.
Okay, then I'll make you go a little harder. Okay. How many games does this series go?
7.
This is okay. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to ask you who wins yet. I just want to know how many it goes. Okay.
I think it's that close, and I think just 2 talented basketball teams. I might want to change that to 6, but for now, I'm going to say 7.
Bill, your thoughts?
So, matchup. I guess the matchup is Royce O'Neal, George Yang, Joe Ingles, Jordan Clarkson, Bogan Bogdanovich, and whoever else you can sort of throw out there trying to slow down, I guess. Luka. I mean, we talked earlier about Magic Johnson. And, of course, the difference is that Luka is a deadly outside shooter, right? He's got all this stuff that Magic had, and he's a great shooter. Yeah. So it's as if Bird and Magic had a baby.
Exactly.
And their baby grew up in Slovenia. So
started playing professional basketball when he was 14.
He started playing, which their baby would do. I mean, if you're the child,
of course, Larry Bird's baby's playing basketball.
Exactly.
And not running that much, carrying a few extra pounds. That's Larry Bird's baby. What are we talking about?
So he is a unique challenge to a defense. And, I mean, obviously the difference between he and a guy like, say, LeBron is that LeBron is this physical presence, right? but he overpowers most of the guys who attempt to defend him. And then if you do send a big guy at him, he cannot quick him.
Right.
With Luka, it's skill. Like, he's not overpowering or out-quicking anybody. It's all this amazing understanding angles and anticipation and what your reaction will be and reacting to your reaction. I mean, it's like what Tom Brady does, because he's not beating you physically. He's just has complete control of everything mentally.
Yeah.
So he's still so young.
Yes.
And he's not one of those, because he's not dependent upon physical ability, he can be this good for a really long time.
Right.
Like, it's really rather frightening. So you have to figure out who just to throw at him, right? That's the first thing. I just named a bunch of names, right? So that's one thing. You're doing that. 2, I almost feel like you don't try to take away Luka. I feel like you try to make it so that Luka is just doing Luka and not making the team better, right? Can you force him just to shoot a lot? And even if he scores 50, can you keep the other guys from scoring more than 42, right? I feel like maybe that's the approach you take. We're going to let Luka score 50, but keep everybody else to 42 or less and try to win this thing 96-92. I mean, it's a weird approach, but I feel like anything else is not going to really work either. He's a really strange problem to have, because you can't defend him. Well, you can't defend him. I guess that's the first issue.
Yeah. Full stop.
Right, that's the first issue. But like the things that you normally do against great offensive players, right? You try to force them off their spot, right? Yep. But his spot is wherever. That's the thing. Like,
push him out of bounds, I guess.
That's the first issue. Like, his spot is wherever he finds himself. So you've got that problem. And then he loves to pass, and he's a great passer. So I really think, I'm half joking, but I'm not really joking. I really feel like it's like, okay, we're going to let Luka go for 50, but we're going to shut everybody else down. Like, it sounds silly when you say it that way, but I really feel like that's as likely to work as anything, more likely to work than anything else you can try.
Right. I can't challenge it. So.
I heard a lot of comparisons this week, about the best 22-year-old player, at this point. But it seems to me that, like, there was a lot of disrespect for Derrick Rose. Does anybody remember what Derrick Rose accomplished as a 22-year-old?
Yep.
I got to see it in person a few times. In fact, I got to see him in person from the time he was about 15 onward. My lovely ex-bride, Dana Watson-Carroll, proud Simeon Wolverine. I got a chance to see him throughout his high school career. My, John Watson III, a.k.a. John, was on the team, theoretically. So we would go to
theoretically. Okay.
He had a jersey.
Well, the problem, he was also a point guard, and so it didn't really work out. But we would go to see Simeon, and it's like, yay, John, you're doing a great job of watching too. But I got to see Derrick Rose a lot, and obviously the Derrick Rose that we're talking about in his prime. I mentioned Kevin Johnson, right? And once again, the same sort of issue. He's so explosive, so able to do all these things. He never became a great outside shooter, but he's become a better one, I guess, since he's lost all that explosiveness. But in his prime, he was an okay outside shooter, was great at pretty much everything else. Incredibly explosive, could dunk from places where you didn't think his height could dunk from. Didn't need to be on balance. I think the thing about him was he was very physically strong, right? Stronger than a guy who looks like that. You would think would be, and obviously, we'll talk about him as those guys who what might have been, like we talk about with Penny Hardaway and lots of others, and he's still having a solid NBA career, but it's not what it would have been, obviously.
Yeah.
But no offense to Derrick Rose, who I love and have appreciated since he was 15 years old, he wasn't anything close to the master level of running a team where Luka is at this age.
Yeah.
It's insane how in control Luka Doncic is of a bunch of grown men. I mean, obviously some are his age, but a bunch of them much older than he is. And he's able to completely get them to do everything he needs them to do, and they look to him.
Yeah.
He's the unquestioned leader and has been really for about 2 years. So, I mean, it's crazy how advanced he is. That's the real difference. And obviously he's not a freak athlete. And Derrick Rose was until the injuries piled up, was an elite level athlete. That's the other big difference. And of course, 6 inches in height also
helps. Yeah, I think your point about Luka can't be understated. And it's everything from how to set up screens to how his movement on the floor is going to impact other guys' move. Luka is intellectually as basketball savvy as I've ever seen, ever. And the thing that Bill snuck in a while back was, it's not his physical ability, so there's no reason he can't do this for another 15 years. He's not in shape now. So it doesn't matter because he can still shoot, and it's going to be incredible. I think quick Derrick Rose thing, I believe, and still this minute, he and Grant Hill, former Piston, are my two, like, if they hadn't gotten injured, if Grant doesn't hurt his foot, we might be talking about top 50 all time. Grant Hill could do everything. Grant Hill that played for the Detroit Pistons he was unbelievable. People don't remember. He went to Orlando and he was coming back from the foot and all that. The Grant Hill that played in Detroit, same thing with Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose, if he doesn't injure himself, there's nothing on the basketball court he can't do physically. I believe he matures as a person. I believe his game evolves. He develops a reasonable shot. And he's in a conversation that right now we don't put him in. And I think it was mostly physical. And I think those two always stood out to me. Like Grant Hill was so unbelievably talented and smart on the basketball court. Yep. And I think Derrick Rose, his game would have evolved. And they're both very unfortunate.
Right. He could have gotten to where Devin Booker is getting to. He could have gotten to that.
Good.
He had the ability to get to that.
Great comp.
If not for, what we just discussed.
Guys, the Lakers are down by 17. I do not see AD out there on the court.
And you shouldn't.
I
mean, if he goes out and plays, do they win? Maybe. Probably
not. He started. He did start.
No, I know, but I mean, it was hope. I think they were hoping there'd be an emotional lift from him. Yeah. But he can't really play. They were trying to Willis Reed their way through that situation. You know what I mean? People forget. Willis Reed played 3.5 minutes. It was inspirational, but he didn't do much.
Exactly. I think at some point in time you recognize it's over. You close the casket and let Richie Incognito swing.
Yeah. I mean, AD doesn't have that kind of intestinal fortitude of a Wes Unseld.
It's unfortunate, but
I mean, it is what it is.
Intestinal fortitude. If he goes all out, he probably blows that. No,
it's a groin injury. Yeah, this is not. This is not about his toughness. I've strained my groin multiple times. You can't do anything. You can't run and jump.
No, right? You can't run. You can't. You can barely walk.
Right. Or maybe he took a shot and he tried. And that's a cool thing, but it just is what it is.
But there is certain places where a shot is not going to just
right.
And like you said, then you take the shot and you ruin the rest of your career. So
right. And he probably wrapped it up and did all that. And at some point, you got to make a business decision.
Yeah,
you're probably not going to beat them anyway. To Bill's point, I think Phoenix is better now. I think they're better.
Not only that, but I think maybe the doctor should have played a little more role and him even start.
Sure,
but anyway,
we'll hear about all that too.
But let's talk about the Clippers. A lot of people talked about Kawhi did he's not the go-to guy and this and that, but the guy they brought over, I mean, Kawhi has always been known more for his defense. I mean, he's called the claw. He's not called the scoring machine.
Right.
I mean, it's not like you said, and you point out with other players, it's not that he can't score, but that's not what he's needed for.
Right.
He's really needed to lock down the other team's best guy. And he really, to be truthful, he hasn't been able to do that, at least the last 2 seasons, very effectively, at least from my point of view.
Totally right. Totally right.
But the guy that you brought over, Paul George, PG13, is actually playing like he belongs on a milk carton.
He's playing like PG3 is what he's right. It's PG-13.
Yeah, right. Well, last night, if you look at the last 4 minutes of that game, there were plenty of chances for the Clippers to pull that game out. But Paul George either decided that he wasn't going to take the shot.
Yep.
Then Kawhi airballs the 3, which probably from that point on, I think the team was totally deflated. And
Sure.
I think that was the losing point of the game. But
Yep.
Demetrius, it's clear to me that PG-13 isn't the go-to guy late in the game.
Absolutely. And I don't even know if he ever was. I don't want to bore the Sports Crib audience by continuing to mention the same phrase. Paul George has never been that dude. That dude wants the ball at the end. That dude demands the ball. That dude will fight you in the locker room if you don't give him the ball at the end of the game. That's what makes him that dude. Yeah, he can get buckets and put up numbers. A lot of dudes can put up numbers. What makes Dame is when it's Dame time, everybody knows it's Dame time. He's not passing you the ball. What are you talking about? This is Dame time. This is not your time. That's what that dude does. That dude knows he's that dude, and he never gives up the privilege of being that dude. He takes that shot. He wants that shot. He lives for that shot. Now, all that being said, Paul George is a really, really good basketball player. Has been for years, and there's no shame in that. For being a really good NBA player for 15 or so years, he's made a lot of money. He's taking care of his family, good life. By all accounts, he's a good dude. There's nothing wrong with that. He's never been that dude. He wasn't that dude in Indiana. He was just the best player on that team. And there's a big difference between being the best player on your team and being that dude. That's not the same thing. And people have been waiting for it, and they've been saying he's it. And that's nice that he gets you 23, 10, and 6. That is really good. There's no shame in that. And we want to talk about, right? That dude, we just talked about that dude. That dude was wearing 77, and he wears the Mavericks uniform, and he gets you 42, 8, and 14. And more importantly, his team wins the basketball game because that's what that dude does. He wins. The reason he's that dude is because he gets buckets and he leads his team to wins. We know what that dude, Bill Carroll and I know what that dude looks like. When we see him, we know. We know. We've seen him our whole lives. We know what that dude looks like. Paul George has never been that dude, and I am not throwing shade. Very good player. He's never been that dude, and I think people want him to be that dude. People expect him to be that dude, maybe because of his salary or the profile or what they gave up to bring him over. He just never has been that dude, and because that dude doesn't pass the ball. Not in a playoff game in the last 3 minutes. No, that dude's taking shots. Dame's taking those shots, and then he's waving you to go home because that's what that dude does. And I think it's just that simple. You're right. Go-to guy, whatever term you want to use. He's never been that. I don't know if it's fair because I don't think he's ever been that. And he's certainly not that now.
What's your thoughts on that, Bill?
Well, when Paul George makes his way to the Suns, now the Suns are going to be ready to make a run for it all, right? Because if he gets to be the third guy, right? He's not your first option. He's maybe not your second, but he's a heck of a third option.
Amazing third option.
I mean, like now you get to see what he really is and what he really can be. Yeah. And the problem is that he tried to put himself in the conversation with guys like Dwayne Wade and stuff like that. And that was a brand thing, not a basketball thing, right?
Exactly. Good call.
So
Good call.
He wanted to have his brand considered with guys like that. But people like to use the term built for, right? So-and-so's built for this, built for that. His brand and what he wants people to think about him is very different from how he's built as a person and a player.
Yep.
He is a great complementary piece. Yep. He will thrive when this team blows apart, which will happen very soon.
Yeah.
And these guys are scattered to better or different situations. And I mean, I'm half kidding when I say the Suns, but actually the Suns would be a really good
That's
fit.
the ideal place, right?
So actually, if I when this team blows apart, it will be soon. If I'm the Suns, I am trying to make this happen because now they have that dude already.
Yep.
So they have Luke, they have Obi-Wan, right? Now they have Han Solo.
Yep.
Now they are ready to take down the Death Star.
Perfect analogy. Perfect analogy. I got nothing to follow that.
I don't know. From the way he's been playing with the Clippers, he might be a better Chewbacca than.
I think actually maybe Kawhi might be a better Chewbacca, but right. I know what you're saying.
Okay, now, right now, the Lakers are down by 18, almost the same scenario as last night, and the Suns are still just dropping threes like rain. It's like I don't even know if they made any 2-pointers tonight. I don't know. But anyway,
if you don't have to, why not? Right?
I think I saw one layup so far for the Suns. But anyway, so let's talk about blowups. We've seen Portland; they're playing the same old song with even with Dame and CJ McCullough. We see, as we've already talked about, the Clippers. LeBron getting a little long in the tooth. AD not really dependable health-wise. Which team will we see, or will it be more than one? Will we see get blown up after this first series loss? The Clippers, the Lakers, or the Blazers?
Well, I'm going to stick with my first answer. I just said the Clippers. I'm sticking with
Yeah. And I think that's the right answer. I think that I don't think it's Portland. I think Portland's actually not that far off. I think you have these teams that are just that player away. Like Portland wouldn't be a horrible spot for Paul George, quite frankly, for all the reasons Bill said. He goes in and he comfortably slides into a third guy role. And it's very similar to, we talked in football about the difference Carson Wentz playing in Philadelphia versus playing your games in Indianapolis, Indiana. Yep. It's a different deal, right? It's a different sort of expectation. It's a different fan base, sports talk radio, where all these ancillary things playing in Portland, Oregon, when there is a dude there, and then there's another really good player in CJ, and all you got to do is come in and fly under the radar and do your job. It's the same thing we talk about Chris Middleton. Drew Holiday pushes Chris Middleton down to being a great 3. When Eric Bledsoe was there, Chris Middleton was a 2. And he was a good 2, but he wasn't good enough. Now, same thing. Paul George will be a great 3 somewhere. So I don't think Portland blows it up. I think Portland is aggressive. And they still got a window with Dame and CJ where they can still compete. I think the Clippers are the place where it's an unmitigated disaster. And they're going to. And I think they've got a type of owner that probably thinks he can buy his way out of it and maybe try something. I don't know. I know Oklahoma City has a ton of picks. I know Houston's got flexibility. And those two teams aren't going to stay bad very long. The Pistons are playing a slow game. Gratuitous mention of my team. Playing a slow game. We're not ready to – we got plenty of cap money. We're not ready to sign anybody. We're growing. We're growing through the draft. But there are teams like Oklahoma City and Houston that wherever that blow-up happens, they're going to be ready to pounce. And I think the Clippers are the one. I think they're both gone. I actually think Kawhi – I believe Kawhi is going to – he might be able to opt out. I think one of those guys can opt out. I got to double check my research. But Bill's answer is right. It'll be the Clippers. It should be the Clippers.
Yep. Guys, a subject that we don't normally cover. And I was hoping our guest came on tonight because she deals with mental health as well as being a former qualified MMA fighter. But we saw the young lady, Miss Osaka. She pulled out of the French Open. Yep. And she said it was because of the mental health and the strains that were put on her by the media. And then the Tennis Association itself basically comes out and says, well, you're not bigger than the sport. Well, if you're the face of the sport, or if you're winning if you're winning, I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, Jimmy Connors didn't win a whole lot of tournaments, but he became the face of the sports by his antics. So, what do you guys think about the situation that this young lady was put in? And what do you think? I mean, we've already talked about, this race norming in football, but when you look at the sport of tennis, going all the way back to Arthur Ashe, couldn't you say the same for tennis and how they treated players of color? Demetrius, I'm not going to let Bill steal all your thunder. Go ahead.
Bill's going to knock this out of the park, so I'm going to give my couple things right there. So yes is the answer to your question, and that's every sport, that's society in general. There is a different standard. There has always been a different standard. If this were a white tennis player, they would have embraced it. They would have led with compassion. We don't ever get that luxury. People that look like us don't ever get that luxury. Now, to her credit, and all I do is I will use words like courage and bravery to describe the young lady, because that was not easy. That is not easy. I have said to people many, many times, I would not be able to handle being famous. I'm so glad. People are, I want to be rich and famous. I want to be rich. You keep the fame. You keep the fame. I like to be rich. I don't know that I can handle it. And I certainly don't have any diagnosed issue. I know that I would not be able to handle it. I just know me. I'm comfortable, like in this setting, in intimate settings, that type of attention at her age, and she's succeeding. Right now, she is successful. She is probably in this transition where Serena is Serena, next level. Like, you can't really even talk about anybody, man or woman, probably in terms of success as you do Serena. But this is transitioning for her to be, as you said, the face of this sport. And it is disappointing, is the best thing I can say. Disappointing that tennis did not metaphorically or even literally put their arms around this young lady and say, we're going to lead with compassion, whatever you need. Because you want to send that message, but separate the business. This is a human being. This is a young lady who is being incredibly brave and vulnerable and stepping out there, talking about something that people just don't talk about. Women in particular are ostracized for talking about this with horrible labels. She is being so mature and brave. And my respect for her, which I always thought by all accounts, she was really, really good at tennis, but a really good young person, tripled, right? And it's just disappointing that the sport doesn't lead with compassion, number one. Just as human beings, this is a human being we should embrace, like metaphorically and literally. They should have had a press conference and literally somebody should have put their arm around her and said, whatever she needs. They should have said, you don't need to drop out. You don't got to talk to him. You don't need to drop whatever you need. Tell us what you need us to do. And I think they're going to realize it. They're going to walk this back. It'll be for business reasons and, political correctness, as opposed to genuinely caring about this young woman. I applaud her that's real bravery and courage. People throw those words out. I think servicemen and women are brave and courageous. I do stuff at work. I've never been brave at work. My job doesn't require bravery. It just doesn't. I'm not upset about that. That's just not what it is. I know what bravery looks like. I know servicemen and servicewomen. My brother-in-law is a law enforcement officer. I know what real brave. That was brave. That was courageous. And the sport missed it. They missed it. And they will probably never get another opportunity like that. They missed one with Serena a few years ago, in my opinion. That sport still doesn't get it. And it maybe it's not overtly racist. They have missed opportunities to lead with compassion as it relates to athletes of color. And they really missed it. They missed the boat this time in a big way. I applaud her, and I'm saddened by the sport.
Bill, I do recall that there was a young lady from Australia that was Aborigine. Yeah. And she went through a lot of mental issues. but at that particular time, it wasn't popular.
Right.
And she was kind of viewed as weak because she couldn't stand the pressure of being uh, a woman of color from Australia and the first of her kind to succeed. Uh, so when you talk about tennis, I even remember, the coming out of Martina Navratilova, and how for a short time, even though she was white, she was still ostracized because, other than Billie Jean King, we weren't into the LGBTQ thing. As a matter of fact, that kind of led up to the match between what's his name, Bobby and Billie Jean.
Mhm.
But Bill, what is your thoughts on the events of what happened this weekend? We talk politics, but have we really, even in the athletic world, been able to make that big of a difference within the last 50 years?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned a few things, and thank you for bringing up Yvonne Goolagong, who doesn't get mentioned nearly enough, quite
No,
frankly,
I
as
mean,
a pioneer in the sport. So I got to be friends with a professor, Dr. William Thomas Trent, and he went to Maggie Walker Alexander High School, which was the big black high school in Richmond, Virginia. One of his classmates was a young man named Arthur Ashe. And so I got to know a man who knew Arthur Ashe reasonably well. There are awards named for Arthur Ashe. There should be more awards named for Arthur Ashe.
right.
It is
More tennis venues named after
This is
Arthur.
right. I mean, it is difficult to explain to someone below a certain age what Arthur Ashe dealt with.
Yep.
Luckily, as bad as things may sometimes be, nobody nowadays in sports is dealing with the things that Arthur Ashe dealt with
Not even
in
close.
a quote unquote gentleman's game, right? As tennis likes to call itself. So a young woman, right, who has a mother from Hokkaido, Japan, and a father from Jamsel in Haiti. A young woman who can speak English and also Haitian Creole, and of course, Japanese is her first language. So we're talking about many ways a citizen of the world to some extent when we talk about Naomi Osaka. She is exactly what tennis should be saying we are now.
right.
Right? I mean, it really is a classic fumbling of the bag moment for tennis, quite frankly.
Yep.
And as Demetrius said, this should be how they kick off their new approach and their new commitment to mental health and creating a safe space for players and all this other stuff. And yeah, they fumbled the bag. They could not have blown this work. I mean, they have all these people they pay, I'm assuming, well, to handle public relations for them. For, I don't know, 20 grand, I could have done a better job, right? Hey, write me a check. I could have handled this for you much, much better. Demetrius, I'll cut you in. But this was such a situation that could have been handled so much better. And now they're going to have to try to fix something that never had to be broken.
Exactly.
That's the first thing. Somebody made mention of Martina Navratilova. And at the time when she decided to come out, she was actually living in my hometown in a condominium that was owned by Nancy Lieberman, actually. So in my hometown in Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Virginia, she had withdrawn for a while from the world because, she was wrestling with this. This was not an easy decision at the time that Martina was making her decision. Now, since then, things have obviously, it's not great, but things have gotten better. But she thought her career might literally be over. And it turned out that wasn't the case, but she didn't know that. Like, it wasn't like she had all these other examples to point to saying, oh, it'll be fine, right? And Naomi Osaka she's 23 years old. She is at this point where she is just hitting her stride. this should be the next 5 to 6 years should be incredible. She should be dominant. She should be doing amazing things. And the sport should be doing everything possible to embrace her and support her and make it clear that your struggles are our struggles. Your problems are our problems. Your successes are our successes. You don't have to be bigger than the sport, but I'll bring back Tiger Woods. Golf eventually got it. That while Tiger might not be bigger than he was, might not be bigger than the game sure as hell is bigger with Tigers in it. Exactly. I'll tell you that much.
Yep. Check the ratings.
The everything's like everything you can measure goes up.
Yep.
So you have essentially this young woman who's taking the torch from the hands of Serena Williams, right? And they should do everything possible to make sure that the torch holder for your sport knows that you're going to do. You see this as a partnership, right? She doesn't just work here. You know what I mean? Like this has the days when you can just tell people, "Hey, you just work here." Those days are gone.
Nope.
That's over. That paradigm has shifted. That's not something that's going to happen. It has happened already.
Yep.
Once again, thank you, Williams sisters. If we're talking about women's tennis, you would think that all of that would have taught them how to handle these things, and they have refused to learn.
Yep. And there's a blueprint there, right? Somewhere in a vault somewhere in New York, there's a PowerPoint presentation from David Stern, and on the front of it, it says your finals are on tape delay. We're going to introduce you to this kid named Magic Johnson, and then we're going to introduce you to another kid named Michael Jordan. How about you change your game forever? And that's what he did. This is not rocket science. This is not. You take care. Fumbled the bag is perfect. Sorry, I'm not going to kid. They dropped the ball. They missed an opportunity is what they really did.
Well, gentlemen, seeing as how we're right on time here, let's get to our final thoughts.
Always on time.
Thank you so much for making sure that you're our timekeeper there, Demetrius.
I'm always honest about it, man. I told you earlier.
Well,
we spent 30 minutes and we were barely through the first question. So we knew what was happening. I loved every minute of it. I'm going to try and do it again next week.
Hey, I'm opening up next week 5 questions. That's it.
Bill and I will find a way to take that in 2 hours. You can try that shit if you want. But Bill and I don't come here for fun. This is what we do.
And unfortunately, I do have the same problem with my Monday show too. So, I just want everybody to be aware that both of you will be on my Monday show. And
I am available this coming Monday.
We'll be talking about inclusion along with the gentleman that wrote a book. If either one of you guys want a copy of the book, I do have a copy. I can send it to you if you'd like. Okay. So, final thoughts. Bill, what's up?
My final thought is a shout out to the Edmonton Elks, a team that you may have previously known as the Edmonton Eskimos. Yeah. So once again, we talk about, hey, maybe you can learn from this. There's a team that doesn't have a name right now in the NFL.
Yeah.
Look at how cleanly and crisply Edmonton managed to execute this, right? They managed to say very quickly, and the term they use in Canada is First Nations. They took a look at the First Nations people, and it didn't take a bunch of protests. It just said someone saying, hey, it's 2021. Maybe we should move on from this. Yeah. There wasn't a whole lot of controversy. Right. And they said, yeah, let's do it. Boom. Right? I grew up watching the CFL because, once again, back in the old days, the ESPN didn't have the NFL and they didn't have college football. They had Australian rules football, hurling. You could watch Irish hurling. They had rugby, even some darts competitions, but they had the CFL. Yeah. And that's when I really fell in love with Warren Moon, in fact.
Yep.
Whose name came up earlier in the show. And, I watched Doug Battershill and, Gizmo Williams and, a lot of my favorite players of that era were CFL players. And obviously, like I said, Warren Moon being at the top. I watched both of the Fluties, Darren and Doug, tear it up in the CFL. But I look towards what the Edmonton Elks have done. Without, like I said, a long, drawn out, delay or battle or any of that, they said it's time, and they changed.
Yeah,
like that.
They didn't call themselves the Edmonton football team for 2 years.
No, they didn't do any of that. They didn't. Once again, we talked about the classic fumbling of the bag. They didn't. They just said, we're going to pivot directly and quickly to this thing that still ties into the land where we are, right? We still did keep our interlocking double E logo. We can do all, and it was smooth. It was smooth. Once again, it's like how to do it versus how not to do it.
Exactly.
We're at a place as a nation where I hope, beyond just derogatory, just the fact that you're using the name of human beings, a class, a group, a culture of human beings as your symbol, your mascot, your whatever, your logo, your all these other things, I would like to think that we're outgrowing that as a culture. And the example of what Edmonton's football team going so swiftly, so smoothly, so almost effortlessly, it seemed. I'm sure there was some effort, but it didn't show, right? They took the duck approach where it's serene and smooth up top and probably paddling like heck underneath. But I didn't have to see that. I didn't have to see the eggs being broken to make the omelet. I just saw the omelet being served. Yeah. So once again, serving notice to not just, the team in the NFL, but other teams that are struggling with how to change from these Native American mascots or whatever. Look how easy it can be. My final thought is do the right thing. And if you do it the right way, it looks right.
Yeah. Seamless. Well done.
Demetrius, I'm going to give you the last word, but I just want to make one comment. This is kind of like my last word. I was very disappointed Monday because it seemed like people didn't know what the holiday was all about.
Oh, yeah.
People are talking about barbecues and things of that nature and celebrations. This holiday was not for the living. This holiday was to celebrate the men and women that have given their lives in the defense of this nation. So people remember what your holiday is about. You can have your fireworks and things like that, but this was a solemn occasion. You don't bring a birthday cake to a funeral. Yep. Demetrius?
Well done. So for me, today's final thoughts became easy. You guys have gotten to know me, and I don't do idolizing athletes very much. Like I'm a huge fan of Willie Mays, Joe Morgan. I love Tom Izzo, Joe Dumars. These are people that I respect and I admire. My idols are Mary and Matt. I talked about them. They made me who I am. They literally made me, but they also formed me. So my idols are called Mary and Matt, with one exception, right? And 5 years ago today, we lost the dude that's over my shoulder. I can never talk enough about him. I will never talk enough about him. There is a reason he's there. It's a cool picture. It's kind of blocked out on my screen, but you guys have seen it enough. You know who's there. I contend from middle to late 1963 until they stripped him of his belt in 1966. And James, boxing. Nobody was ever better at that craft than he was. They took from all of us, from him and us, 3 years where we would have probably witnessed the prime of his career, the best to ever do it. And still, I say, nobody could have ever touched him. From middle of 63 to 66, nobody was ever as good at anything as he was at this craft. And then after that, he was just even better. I mean, so I have a visceral reaction to anybody being called the GOAT. I hate it. I hate it so much. There's one GOAT. There's only one GOAT. Literally, he owns a trademark to the term, by the way. So he is literally the only GOAT. Other people can be the greatest to do whatever they've done. You can call him the greatest of all time. There's one GOAT, one, and that's it. And we lost him 5 years ago. And I think that for me, the dictionary defines humanitarian as a person who seeks to promote human welfare, a philanthropist. That's a dictionary definition. And if people disagree with me, we can have a conversation. More than his sport, more than his race, and we can have a conversation about what that man did for our people. I would say to you, the courage he displayed and people who got lost in why he did what he did will never understand. That was courage. He gave up money. He gave up he couldn't eat. He was borrowing money from Joe Frazier. That's courage. Because truthfully, and I won't jump way down the rabbit hole, but I almost got in a fist fight when a guy called him a draft dodger. And I just said, look, my brother served, my uncle served. These are Navy men. I have so much respect for military people. When he was first classified, and you guys probably know the classifications better than I am, F is the letter. They just wanted him to go do boxing exhibitions. He would have never seen any combat, and he knew that. And he still stood up and said, can't do it. That is about your beliefs. That's about what's in your heart. That's about your faith. And he spent the rest of his life validating, this is my faith. My faith defines me. I have an unnatural love for Muhammad Ali. I admit that, really admit that. I am not ashamed of that. I'm telling you, like I said, after Mary and Matt, he's the first one on the list. And there's a lot of guys in sports I think are really good dudes. Like I mentioned Joe Dumars a lot. Joe Dumars is a really good man who happened to be a really good basketball player. My mom and dad are who I am. But Muhammad Ali means so much to me. He does. He always will. And that is the fifth anniversary of his passing is significant to me. And so there was no doubt what I was going to mention in my final thoughts when I woke up and saw the 5-year thing. I thought, oh boy, okay, there's no, you don't have to think about that. Because I will never pass on an opportunity to tell people. I will mention he, in my opinion, was the greatest to ever box, like that craft. And I love Meldrick Taylor. I like Pernell Whitaker. There's some great guys, like who guy from my hometown of Flint, Michigan, named Chris Bird. Before he moved up there, Chris Bird was a joy to watch perform. He was so great at the part of boxing people don't like. He was a defensive wizard, right? Cassius Marcellus Clay, and just as he was converting, that dude couldn't be touched. He just was so good. I will talk to you about how good he was. I think that he as a man did so much for people that look like us. I don't think I could ever say he was underrated. That's ridiculous. Or underappreciated. It's kind of, I still think I won't pass up an opportunity to talk about him ever in my life. So if you run across me, you're going to hear that name. His picture is in my podcast, which is about an NFL football team. So I was like, that's where I am with that man. And rest in peace, champ. So,
well, hey guys, I will see you again next week. And no, actually, I will see you both Monday. And I'm looking forward to having a great conversation. We will be talking to another athlete, Mr. Bo Sanders. And as I said, if you want any background information, I'll send you his press kit and his book if you'd like. Just let me know.
Send some of that over. I definitely want to take a look at it.
Okay, I'll send it to both of you. Excellent. All right. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you next week. And hey, make sure you set your clocks ahead.
Yes. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Good night.
Good night.